That's a very good idea.
Welcome to our first regular Village of Ballston Spa Board of Trustees meeting of the official year. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Baskin, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a packed agenda tonight. We'll try to move through this as quickly as possible. Thanks for joining us here in person and also on Zoom to those that are on Zoom tonight. We have a public hearing scheduled, and first things first, this is on the budget. We'll have the clerk read the public hearing notice into the record.
The Village of Ballston Spa Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the lower conference room of the library located at 21 Milton Avenue and via Zoom. The purpose of the special meeting is for a budget workshop hearing for the proposed 2022-2023 fiscal year budget.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And Treasurer Julia Smith will present some information about the budget and take it away.
Okay, so to begin, there has been no changes in the budget that you have right now from the presentation of the tentative budget at the last regular board meeting. The budget has been created within the 2% tax limit with a tax cap calculation. This is a 2.46% increase in tax levy. Tax levy is the amount of money needed to close the gap between expenditures budgeted and revenues received. The average assessed value of a home in the village is $180,000. That means for a tax bill for a property at that assessed value would have an increase for the town of Milton of $6.60 in addition, and for the town of Ballston would increase an additional $11.04 for the year. To begin with some of the information on the budget, we have allocated $60,000 in fund balance to put towards the fire department's building improvements. For the current year, we have budgeted across the funds $1,844,978 for personal services, otherwise known as payroll. This is a $132,952 increase from fiscal 2022 budget. The percent change is 7.77%. These increases are due to union contract increases, minimum wage, court clerk salary increases, and larger buffer and police department due to overtime and union contract increase unknowns. For the general fund, the overall change in expenses is 0.97%. This is largely due to the increase in debt services of the decrease in debt service of $19,663 in principal and $5,770 in interest. This is also due to a decrease in employee benefits of $116,113, which allowed us the ability to meet most department requests. Decreases in employee benefits are explained by a lower retirement system annual estimated invoice, which both decreased for police and fire and for normal employee state retirement. This is also due to a decrease in workers' comp, which this is due to a lower number of claims, and a decrease in health insurance due to better management of retirees and enrollment. Also to note, we did still budget for an increase in insurance for the beginning of the next calendar year. Other notable changes include an increase in village auditing budget, increase in street and village signs, budget for the flashing crosswalk, increase in the engineering budget, increase in the sidewalk budget, and lastly, an additional $20,000 in contingency, bringing us to $120,000 for fiscal year 2023. Last to make note of is library expenses are up $13,463, which is a 5.39% change from fiscal year 2022. While revenues are down nearly 3%, some contributors to the decrease in revenue is largely part of the inconsistency of Sal's grants, or otherwise known as Southern Adirondack Library Systems. Any questions on this public hearing? I'd be happy to take and answer during my treasurer's reports section.
And let me just thank you very much, Julie. Great job. Let me just remind everyone that we are not voting to approve the budget tonight. We did not have the opportunity during workshops for public comment. And so tonight's going to be your first actually scheduled time to have public comment if you choose to use it. If you do, raise your hand. You'll have 5 minutes and we will identify you. Just please give your name and address for the record, and we'll start your clock after that point if you do want to speak. Anyone want to speak to the budget? Nobody in the room? Anybody on Zoom in the meantime? Julie did such a great job explaining it. You have no questions, and there you are. Let the record reflect Mark Black is a big fan. Hearing nothing and seeing nothing here, I believe we should have a vote to close the public hearing. Can I get that motion? Second from the trustee Van Dance. Okay, Bernadette, help me out because I did it 18 different ways last week. Van Dance.
I'm afraid, you know, because I'm angling.
Are you going to second that by any chance? The motion?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, by trustee Raymond. Any discussion? Roll call vote for that?
Trustee Van Danza? Yes. Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Cormos? Yes. Trustee Baskin?
Yeah.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes, and that means we're closing public hearing at 7:06 p.m. officially. Time for approval of prior minutes.
Mayor,
Yes,
I'd just like to share some information about the budget and talk about how it looks there, you know, versus the historical numbers. I
Well-
have some handouts which, you know, people can take.
it's a little bit out of order in the meeting, Liz. We do have other business and old business that we can discuss, or Julia's free to having participate number 7. So why don't we just roll with where we are, and then if you want to give that discussion.
Later on?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Let's talk approval of minutes. The minutes from 4/4, which is just a week ago, and it was a long meeting, as many of you remember. I don't think are fair game for approval this time, unless somebody wants to say otherwise.
I don't think we got it.
Okay, so there's really a reason why it's not fair game. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes from March 28th, 2022's meeting?
I'm thinking, what I'd like to move is to table that for next meeting. I didn't have complete opportunity to look at them and offer edits just because they came today versus Friday. It's very helpful to have that weekend. And also we want to probably discuss the putting the reports at the end of the minutes that came up at the last meeting. So I'm hoping we could approve those at the next meeting. The motion to table.
Well, there's no motion on the floor.
All right, make
Yeah,
a
it's just-
motion to table till the next meeting, the minutes, 3/28.
There's no motion. We could just skip over it if nobody's going to make the motion to approve the minutes. It sounds like nobody is making that motion to approve the minutes. Everybody's in agreement that we'll hold off on these minutes until the next meeting.
Thank you.
No problem. Any discussion generally though about any changes that anybody's seen to this point? Maybe hand it over to the clerk and she'll make sure that gets into the record for 2 weeks from now. Okay. Mayor announcements. We got plenty. Trust me. First things first, I want to remind everybody that the Union Fire Company #2 annual fish fry is on Good Friday, this Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., $15 for a dinner, which includes fish fry, fries, coleslaw, and water. I shall be there because it sounds really good right now. I did not eat a proper dinner. Also, we have a discussion coming up here from our village attorney. You scared Gray from her coming back, I bet, after last week. about Dish Network, a contract that we are considering right now. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dish Network is looking to place a wireless tower on top of the John Street water tower. It came in, they approached the village, I believe it was back in the fall, actually back in the summer of 2021. It was well before my time. There was some back and forth with prior council. And when I came on board, I got into this, was working with Jen Moskowitz on it as well. And at this point, I just do want to give the board a couple updates on that. It is for the John Street water tower. It is, it is no money out of pocket from the village. It is money to the village, which is always a good thing. It's $1,000 a month. It's a $12,000 a month year rent for the first 5 years with a 3% increase every subsequent 5 years of whatever that last 5-year amount is. It's a 5-year agreement with 4 5-year renewals if you want. It does not mean they can't locate or other companies can't come in and go on the water tower. They can absolutely do that. There is insurance required. There's no assignment, the general parts of the contract, but ultimately it's money to the village. I'm working with Martha Grady and Nick Smith from Dish Network to move forward with this. They're very interested. They probably call me or Jen every other day and want to move this forward. They think it's a great location. So at this point, what I have is a draft agreement, which I worked with a little bit. I'm going to send it out to the board, have the board look at it, and then perhaps it would be on the agenda for discussion and or adoption and authorization at the next meeting.
I'll look for your advisement on what to do with that after you send that around, and do appreciate the update on that.
I just had one question. Have we done any comparison what other providers pay for light placement? Because how do we know if that's, you know, a good deal for us?
I have not done that. I wasn't asked to do that. I have negotiated these agreements in different municipalities. This is a lower one, significantly lower. So that's something I do want to talk to the board about. We were able to negotiate one at almost 3 times this in a different municipality, but it was also a different company. It wasn't Dish. So that's something we can talk about.
Okay.
Yep.
It's a 1-year contract?
No, it's a 5-year contract with 4, and these are always like this. All of these kind of agreements are 5-year contracts with 4 or 5 automatic renewals of 5 years each, plus an escalation clause. Actually, we increased it to a 3% escalation, which is really good. It's usually they only allow 2%. And we negotiated a couple other things in there, but no, it is a 5-year agreement. And the point of that, from their perspective, at least what they've told me for years, and same with solar companies, is they need to get their investment back. And to have to go through everything and put the equipment on there, they don't get their
I
investment.
guess I'm wondering, because it's conceivable in 5 years, potentially something might happen to that tower.
We may
One way
move
to-
it,
you know,
decommission it.
There's language in here that if that does happen, then the agreement is just done. There's no
okay.
damages to, I did take that into account.
Let's probably take a good look at the agreement once it's sent around, and we'll be able to ask questions probably by email, and then come to conclusion in a couple of weeks, hopefully, or bring up concerns that will push it off, one or the other. Further announcements, here we go. Creekside Playground at Kelly Park opened last Wednesday. Bathrooms won't be open for a couple of weeks. We did have to close Kelly Park because of flooding during the weekend a little bit, but it is back open. Community Emergency Corps is seeking approval for installing a new toddler play set, replacing the current one, fully financed by community, and to be constructed next to the Kelly Park Pavilion by the Ballston Spa Rotary and Lions Clubs. We're going to be doing an approval for that hopefully on the April 25th village board meeting, or at least we'll bring it up as a possible motion to be voted on. This weekend, I reached out to Scott Ostrander, Town of Milton supervisor, and during the campaign, we saw for ourselves, Bernadette and I, some of the troubles that Colonial Hills residents go through during especially snowstorms. And the last major snowstorm that we had on that Saturday is about 4:30 p.m. 6 inches of snow had probably fallen, and there had not been a plow in sight at that point in time. And we heard a lot of complaints in general about Colonial Hills situation with brush pickup as well. So I reached out, especially with the budget situation still open, to find out from Scott what it would cost to essentially get Milton's assistance to do plowing and or brush pickup. Well, we found out that they had done a little bit of their own homework and set aside about $15,000 for other village types of projects that had not been budgeted for in the past, knowing that this question may come up. In other words, they're willing to do this kind of work for us for zero to assist Colonial Hills with plowing and brush pickup both. I'm going to be asking DPW, Jeff, to reach out to the town's DPW staff and figure out the best way to accomplish this. But I do want to send our appreciation for even just the thought of this to the town of Milton and Scott Ostrander and Jason Miller out there and the entire board.
And that will require an intermunicipal agreement.
Absolutely. So just want to go through the starting steps on that.
Oh, an intermunicipal agreement is just what it sounds like. It's an agreement between municipalities. And so it's just because you can't gift. You can sometimes gift between municipalities. It's just better to have all the information in an agreement so that the services are provided and both municipalities are protected.
Water, Lowell Street pumps, those pumps that we've been talking about for a little less than a year right now. They were deemed very necessary, a lot of leakage going on with our existing pumps. Well, after a supply chain issue from hell, they have arrived. And that was at the end of last week. The first one was scheduled for installation today. Jeff said they started to do it, although they were having a little bit of, I think, slowdown on it, but they're working on it if it hasn't been finished already. And after a couple of days of the first one functioning, making sure that it's going to be fine where it is, the other pump will be installed in place of the second pump that's taking the brunt of it while the first pump's installed. So fingers crossed the system holds up correctly, and as a result, we'll have a lot less leakage going on over there and less concerns about our water pump situation. So great job by DPW in getting those pumps finally into position and to our contractor for installing or starting to. You'll see a motion later on tonight about sending a letter to Jim Tedisco's office. Senator Tedisco has been a champion for the swap bill. It's kind of like a CHIPS highway money bill from the state, except for water and sewer infrastructure to replace some of the 100-year-old pipes, et cetera. And it's especially crucial as we've seen our aging pipes and other aspects of our systems challenged during even the most recent storms this weekend. And so you'll see that that's what that letter is about. And they say it's still relevant despite seeing some infrastructure funding addressed. I saw in the budget that was approved that this bill is still a relevant bill for us to get behind. Easter egg hunt was a tremendous success. Thanks to Mark Black and Gina Morosi for championing the efforts there. About 300 people we believe attended there. We didn't have an official count, but boy, that place was packed at the Milton Community Center. I want to thank the financial sponsors, Curtis Lumber and Hannaford, and thanks to Scott Ostrander again for working with me to support that successful event this weekend. He said to me it's something that the village should stay behind in the future, and I think we will, seeing how successful it was. I reviewed the pending PDD legislation in depth this weekend. It's a great read. Anybody, I recommend reading it from cover to cover if you've got nothing else to do with your day. And became concerned with how many issues I did identify that haven't been addressed 6 months later. And after doing that, I called up Roy O'Connor, the planning board chairman, asked for him to send me over the planning board's comments related to the legislation. And over the next week or so, I'm planning on meeting with some stakeholders before the next meeting to help determine the best course of action with the trustees for revising this law and getting it passed once and for all. I believe we're at that phase here, at that time where this needs to be done. And I look forward to working with the trustees on this after doing a little bit more diligence on my end of this, getting caught up. Coffee with the Mayor will debut on Thursday morning, starting next week, with the first one being held at Nomad Coffee and Crepes and the next at Coffee Planet the following Thursday. And we'll alternate locations each week. Information will be available on my official mayor's Facebook page. Just a chance for community members to have any questions, thoughts, concerns, whatever, to sit down, have some coffee with me, and we can talk it out and see what we can do to help out. I'll be creating several mayor's advisory boards over the next months to get recommendations to the mayor on important village issues from a number of interested residents. The first two that I have in mind will be related to special events and the ethics code, as we kind of discussed a little bit last week at the organizational meeting. There will be more information on how to join these boards, and specific details will be available soon on social media and from the village staff. So again, stay tuned on that. Want to also update, did some diligence this week on the ethics board situation, because as you remember, we had two motions tabled related to Donna Duffy and Lloyd Hellman getting renewed on the ethics board. Wanted to see what exactly happened historically with those members. And I think we do owe both of them an apology as a board, because there was some discussion that suggested that they were never placed correctly onto the board. We dug out the 2018 organizational meeting minutes, and in that organizational meeting, Lloyd Hellman, Donna Duffy, and Michael Baravis were all properly placed on the Board of Ethics at that meeting. I couldn't go deeper in history than that at the time, but at least we know in 2018 they were. In 2020, April 2020, the first meeting was the organizational meeting and a budget hearing. And what we noticed from those minutes is that Donna Duffy was renewed, Michael Baravis was renewed, but Julie Gazitos was the person that was actually nominated at that time and approved on that board. So I called in former Mayor Wilbright on this because, again, this was at the beginning of COVID shutdowns, and was wondering what happened, because all of the paperwork we had from 2020 and beyond showed Lloyd Hellman as a member and Julie Gazitos as an alternate. He sent me a letter explaining it. Dear Mayor Rossi, in answer to your inquiry about Lloyd Hellman's service on the Village Board of Ethics, I have reviewed the minutes and other pertinent records. Mr. Hellman was appointed to the Board of Ethics in 2018 by Mayor John Romano, and that appointment was passed by the Village Board of Trustees. His appointment should have been renewed in 2020, but the minutes of the organizational meeting of that year confirm that I inadvertently left his name off the list of appointments. That was a completely unintentional error on my part, and I apologize for the confusion it has caused. To my knowledge, Mr. Hellman has continuously served on the Board of Ethics up to the present date, as neither he nor I was aware of his omission from the 2020 list of appointments. He has been an active contributing member of that board and has served the village well in that capacity. In light of this, I hope that you are able to correct my mistake and ensure Mr. Hellman's continued service in this capacity. Please feel free to contact me if you should have any additional questions about this matter. Sincerely, Larry Wilbright, ex-mayor. So there is the status of things. Again, to recap, Donna Duffy was appointed in 2018 through vote of the board, in 2020 up to this point properly, let's call it. Lloyd Hellman was in 2018, unintentionally left off in 2020, but did function in through no fault of his own. That inadvertent mistake occurred and was never caught. We'll talk about this later on as we have motions lined up for that. But I wanted to at least explain why you'll see those motions coming up a little bit later on. Did I skip a page? That went faster than I thought it was going to. No, I think we're good. Let's go to liaison reports. Any liaisons have a report for tonight?
I do.
Go for it.
Park and Tree Board, a couple of members of the Park and Tree Board met with Davy Resources on Friday, April 8th, and answered questions related to a planting plan that they are developing under the Urban Forestry Grant. The grant will include a management plan with budget for us extending over the next 5 years. And that will give us an indication of what trees need to be removed or pruned or replaced. And that'll give us some guidelines, and depending on budget, we'll implement those. The grant should wrap up before June. I also attended the Arts Committee. Ben Baskin usually attends, but he was unable to. He had a conflict on on April 6th, and the committee described a number of programs that they're currently working on. They did receive notice that they've received the $5,000 grant from Saratoga Arts. So they were the recipient of that grant.
Did we convey to them yet our idea for presentation in May, just to talk about what the future looks like and what to do as a board for their board going forward?
Yes, I did mention that there was a desire, to have them present.
Great, thank you, and we'll follow up on that, obviously. Any other liaison reports?
I'd just like to add that I'm going to start working with Jeff, start moving forward with our engineering firm that won the RFP for the water feasibility study. And one of the first steps there will be doing a reassessment of all our infrastructure, water towers, find out what the current conditions are, and then moving forward with other parts of the feasibility study. So Jeff's going to need them to provide them with some data and information. So I'm going to work with him and the engineers to make sure we keep it moving.
We received that list, and actually Jen and I were going to reach out to find out that some of the information is the level of intrusive that I'm not comfortable with. Specific information about users, amount used by users, as in all residents, addresses, account numbers, etc. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with why that level of information would need to be revealed. So
I think it's more about geography than anything.
maybe there's a way to give them what they need without getting to that level. So we couldn't catch them today. We're going to try again tomorrow. Just have that conversation. I'll keep you updated on kind of what the back and forth is there.
They may need to know the geography of it so that there's potential water loss, where it can potentially be.
Mayor, you can also handle that with a confidentiality agreement where where they won't share that information.
I'm aware. It's one of those things that if we can avoid doing it altogether, I would feel most comfortable. But again, if they have a specific need that can't be avoided, then we'll have to go to that route most likely. So I appreciate that. Any other liaison reports? Hearing none. Julie did such a great job earlier on. Let's have her go again. Treasurer's report.
I don't have too much to list out, mostly because I've been too busy to think about it. But the first thing I did want to note is that the tax levies, or the taxes that remained unpaid as of October 31st of 2021 has now been received from the county. So that will make us whole in terms of unpaid taxes. And the second piece of information I wanted to share was for the Saratoga Avenue or Harley grant. I submitted the paperwork a few weeks back, and it has been audited by the state. And we have just received the payment as of last week. So that is another grant that we were able to close up.
What's the status of the TSCO grant? Do we have any status on that?
The information was corrected and submitted a couple weeks ago. I think, unfortunately, with the budget brouhaha's going on over the last couple of weeks, they have not been exactly focused on those types of matters. I wanted to give his office some time to sleep. I saw Mary Beth Walsh yesterday, and she told us how tired she was from the weekend. And so I would assume Jim and his office are just as tired. But they are not in session over the next couple of weeks, from what I understand. And so might be able to get some information on a late basis to see where they are. But it's a little bit quiet right now in Albany after everything that occurred. So we'll stay on top of it. Okay. Next up, he's no thorn. He's Field Horn, the presentation from Brookside Museum. Field, we apologize for the name error, but it gives you more press that way. Field Horn, Acting Director, Brookside Museum. Thanks for joining us, and please tell us about the Brookside Museum, what's going on.
Thank you, Mayor. The mission of the Saratoga County History Center, housed at Brookside, is to serve as a repository for local and regional histories, to provide innovative educational and public programs.
Field, can I ask you to just come into the picture just so folks can see you on Zoom land?
Really?
Just walk a little bit forward and we'll tell you when you're in. There you are. Zoom now can appreciate who you are.
And to instill in our county a deeper understanding of how the past informs and impacts our present and future. As you probably know, our building, built in 1792, is the oldest structure in Ballston Spa and the first hotel constructed for the then new resort trade in either this village or Saratoga Springs. Derelict, it was purchased in 1971 and opened as a museum in 1974. I was the paid director from 1978 to 85. The first floor encompasses 4 galleries, one of them a meeting room as well. The second are office, research library, and storage areas. The attic is all storage. Our programming is rapid fire and active. The Saratoga County History Roundtable, which is operating under our aegis, presents a public program about once a month and provides researched articles to Saratoga Today newspaper on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. We also present experts next door lectures, and we employ a professionally trained half-time director of education who works with both school and adult groups. Our collections document the county's history intensively. The photo collection is the heaviest on the village and provides a comprehensive visual record of the village's growth. The manuscript collection, business and organizational records, personal papers and diaries, collections of historical materials, is concentrated on the village and 6 surrounding towns. This is something of a problem because we are a county institution, but historically the support has come from the core around where we are. The textile collection is vast. The object collection is somewhat sprawling, but should concentrate on items made or used in Saratoga County. In other words, there's culling that needs to be done. Last year was a highly successful rebuilding year. After we nearly closed in October 2019, we built a new board of trustees and began tackling many critical tasks. For the first time in quite a while, we filled the first floor galleries. A Century of Ice Cream, a history of Stewart's. The social lives of Pat's Skidmore students researching hats in our collection. And the country store with photos from all over the county. There was at least one public program a month, most of them on Zoom, and attended by people in distant places as well as here. The Roundtable published a book, Saratoga County Stories, based on new research. Membership, our most dependable income source, which had reached 550 in my last year as paid director, which admittedly is 37 years ago, had dropped to 145 in 2018. It reached 338 last calendar year, and it must reach a critical mass of 500 next year. That's sort of a personal goal. I'm serving a 2-year term. Our annual appeal for funds to address restoration issues brought in $31,000 from 68 individual donors. And that was without high pressure, buttonholing people. It just came in, which is very, very encouraging. This year, we have a clear plan to fully stabilize the museum and begin to build revenue towards the goal of again hiring an executive director, which we had from 1978 until 2020, I guess. The recent annual appeal will allow us to restore the front porch, replace the 70-year-old storm windows, which were decrepit when I arrived in 78, and probably stretch to work on 2 back of the house areas that suffered water damage in past years when the sheetrock came down. We've also obtained some foundation money to begin landscaping. The Stewart's exhibit will remain through November, as will the new Black History exhibit, joined for summer and fall with an exhibit on the potato chip, popularized in this county around 1850. I didn't say invented, that's another matter. And another Skidmore student show interpreting photos of county residents in social contexts. Grange meetings, clam suppers, all sorts of activities from about 1860 to about World War II. And working with Skidmore students, especially with a really fine professor who makes it his business to encourage them to try new things like a museum exhibit, is really a pleasure. And they've helped us, obviously, too. Sheep to Shawl, I'm sure you all know about Sheep to Shawl. First presented in 1979, I brought the idea up from Tarrytown where I came, will return after a 2-year hiatus. Collections care will continue with the manuscripts approaching completion, and an inventory in the attic will begin this spring. The institution is governed by a board of trustees of 19 members, half of whom are Ballston Spa residents, and who bring diverse talents, strong commitment, and a willingness to roll up their sleeves. On their behalf, I extend our thanks to you for village support. I think I was briefer than Mr. Baskin told me I needed to be, so if you have any questions, I don't think I'll run over.
Paul Harnan. What official capacity does the village have with the historical society, since we don't seem to have a historian? We have a historian, but no records down here. Has everything been moved to Brookside? Are they the official people that handle all the village records now? How is that standing?
Contract wise, I know last week in our list of approvals, we named Brookside Museum as basically the historian function for the village. With respect to where the records are or how they are at this point, I think that's a work in progress still, especially with what's going on upstairs in village offices.
Okay.
So something definitely for us to keep paying attention to, assuming Field will.
Do they
help
get
us out
all
with
your
that.
records now? Are they officially going to be handed over to them?
I'm not sure the agreement reads that way, but
No.
Let me explain mine.
Mhm,
When Chris Morley passed away and you got rid of all the records
mhm,
that were down there and all his personal stuff,
mhm.
my daughter and I boxed up about 38 to 40 boxes and put them upstairs. Of those, that number of boxes, we took about 36 of them to our house. And my wife has been cataloging all that for the last 3 or 4 years. And the village was nice enough to bring us a 5-drawer filing cabinet. And that is now full of all the records and all catalogs. And I think my wife has maybe 3 boxes left, and there's some 4 or 5 boxes left upstairs.
Thinking of the file cabinet.
Well, that's- so what I'm asking is, where do those records go? Because at some point, we like to move them out of our house.
Paul, I think a good idea for us is to maybe discuss that amongst ourselves after this, because I didn't realize you had that litany of
That's
information.
all the records that were downstairs.
Mhm.
Now, Chris Morley also moved a fair amount into that room there that's kind of disorganized. So they need to be all cataloged and put someplace.
Is your wife sick of you yet, so that she can
No,
come down and help
that
out?
was done. You got to figure that out. So the records are in there and at our house. So you need to tell me what to do with them.
We will do so. I
Okay.
appreciate that,
Thank
and
you.
maybe feel find some good use in maybe a future presentation at the museum with some of those. I do want to share for those that aren't aware of the history. I think your predecessor, Michelle Arthur, worked with her a number of years ago when there was a real financial problem for the museum, and its future was very much in doubt. And Michelle worked with myself, my sister Gina, Mary Beth Walsh, to go to the towns. And at that time, it was Tim Stepanek in the town of Ballston and Scott Ostrander in the town of Milton, to give some extra money in that one year as a one-time gift or contribution toward the cause. And we were all nervous about what would happen after that, but we said, let's give it a try. Let's see what would happen. And not only have you survived through COVID. Sounds like you've got a great plan together for what the future holds. So I see members of your board here, great job, great work to keep it together and to pave the way for the future. And great to hear that Sheep to Shawl is coming back. My old days in St. Mary's School, we would go there every year. So I do remember it well. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Actually, Mayor, we have someone on Zoom.
Oh, let's go to a Zoom question for you.
Carmella,
Poss-
can you hear us?
Possibly inadvertent hand. Let's see.
Maybe.
We'll assume inadvertent for now.
Okay. Never mind, I didn't mean to interrupt. I said nothing.
You're fine. Anybody on the board have any questions, any thoughts
I
before we
was
let
just
Bill go?
wondering on those records, if, our records management grant, if they deal with these. I don't know if former mayor has any comment. She knows the most about that grant. My understanding is that those are not the kinds of records that they are required to deal with. I know that, I didn't know what Paul was referring to, but back here, I know that there are a number of records that are in the library, but the records management is mainly, it's what the state archives is calling, public records of public business. You could certainly ask the consultants, but I don't think those are the kinds of records that they're looking at. I could be wrong. The one thing I will say is that there are a number of file cabinets that are available that were taken out of the second and third floor that Jeff has stored, which can be used for this material. That I know exists, and you can speak to Jeff about that. He's stored those.
Definitely look forward to working with Paul on getting some of this stuff over.
These are historical records, not
Public records.
public records.
Right, so
That's all
it would be-
historical material.
Yeah.
And we did get the 5-drawer file cabinet from the village.
How large
Well,
is
there
the
are more.
Yeah, I saw it, you're right.
Okay.
How large is the catalog that your wife made on this? Is it
If you
something?
take a 5-drawer catalog file folder,
Yep,
5 drawers.
Yep.
Every drawer is full.
okay,
I mean, you can't get any more in them.
gotcha.
And I think she has 2 boxes left to look at. And a box of artifacts.
Can you give us an example of what's in the file?
Everything you can think of about the village of Ballston Spa, people that lived in the village of Ballston Spa, the memoirs that they gave to Chris. A lot of people, the buildings,
What era,
military records.
what era are they from?
When way back Bernie Puckhaber, when he started as the historian, he gathered a lot of material. So it goes right back to when the village was first incorporated and before. So
We will definitely follow up on that.
there's a lot of material there.
Appreciate that.
Lovingly.
Also,
taking care of that for a minute.
if you go downstairs for the assessor is, not the assessor, building inspector, that vault back there, that's full of historical records, including about 8 or 9 big thick binders of the cemeteries in the area that should not be destroyed. They should be part of the record. So you have a lot of stuff downstairs. I don't even know if people have looked in there, back in there. There's a lot of stuff still in there.
Add this to the list of things to do then on our list here. And again, we appreciate that, Paul. Field, any last pitch you want to do? What are your hours generally for these exhibits?
Looking at Donna, I think Thursday through Sunday starting soon, 1 to 5. We've not been doing weekdays this winter. We may go further than that.
I'm curious about the potato chip one coming up here. I'm a little bit partial to my snack foods, so
Well, we hope to also have a potato chip and beer festival.
consider me there.
The exhibit will be ready 10 of June. It's going to be a little later than we planned.
Keep us informed and
I
we'll
just
add
have
it.
I just have a question. I mean, since you're here, is that a function that you have staffing or volunteers to do if someone says I have volunteer or I have public documents, historical, that you have the capacity, or is that a John Cromie function, or would you be able to go to Mr. Farn's house? And
Is John now the village historian?
I believe he is, so, right?
We did not approve it officially last week, so
You said we were the historian a minute ago.
Well, of the
Yeah.
county, I don't know, of the village too?
we'll have to look back at the minutes to see exactly how it's characterized, so.
I think John used to be
Not an
our
official,
historian.
Uh,
But he's not anymore. Okay, so do you have that functionality?
Well, I'm working on it. I'm trying to catch up with many decades of backlog down at the building. They have been cared for, they've been protected, but they were processed in numerical order. When they came in, they were given a number. So to give you an example, we have a collection of 200 letters from Alonzo Bump of Greenfield to his wife during the Civil War. They're in one box. And when I got there, another letter had been given by Lance Ingmeyer 4 years ago. It was 20 feet away in another box. So there's been a lot of work to do to get it in shape. It's sort of weird coming back after 35 years to a collection that I had organized and finding it sort of in entropy. Yeah. But it's what I do. I've done the Saratoga Water Service, the Forest Collection, the State Park Collection, the Saratoga Springs City Historian, the Saratoga Springs History Museum Collection. Just for starters, I've worked on those collections. And now this one, because I really feel this one has to be put in good shape. And so later.
Just to clarify real quick, the Brookside Museum was designated as a consultant on history for a period of 1 year and the agreement was approved. So that's the official verbiage.
Okay.
Sorry, Donna?
I just wanted to let you know, I've had a request that you tell people how they can join the museum and become members
Oh, yes.
or donors.
Yes, all of the above. Well, you can do it online. Brooksidemuseum.org, the brooksidemuseum.org.
Brookside Museum, all one word.
Brooksidemuseum.org. We also have a bright orange brochure at the building that would allow you to fill it out and send it in. And we need membership because when you think about it, the county's population in 1985, when we had 550 members, was somewhere in the neighborhood of 140,000. And I think it's about 225 to 30,000 now, and our membership is lower. And has been a discouragement. But we also don't have any members in Moreau. We don't have many in Waterford. We have to work on that. There are a lot of things to do. I'm very encouraged by the caliber of the Board of Trustees. It's really extreme. I've been on a number of boards, and this is probably the best one in terms of a breadth of talent and knowledge and commitment.
If you'll keep us posted on the events, definitely. We'll include them in our reports here
Thank
as
you,
we do that. And thank you to Field. Presentations are always a tough act to follow, I'll tell you that. We got old business up next. Anybody have some old business they want to discuss? I have a feeling that was going to be your cue. So
Okay.
if you want to, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, those are extras and these are you folks just passing down. I'll just go really briefly through these. What I'm showing on these graphs is since 2016, I've been sort of tracking the village's performance. And we all know that the village was in pretty bad shape a number of years ago. So this first graph, shows how taxes are increasing, but the yellow line shows we've had a lot of up and down with the percent increase, and particularly in 2018 and 19. But the last few years, we've kept under the next graph really shows the difference that has occurred since 2017, where we actually had a negative fund balance and were in real problems. That has now climbed to almost 3.4 million. Now that looks like a large number, and you think, oh, we can solve all our problems with 3.4 million. That's probably about 10% of what we need to address all the issues in this village, in water, sewer, storm water, buildings, equipment. So, the bottom line is that we now in position to be able to, qualify for low interest loans to get financing, which we couldn't get a number of years ago, and to match on some grants. The fund balance as a percent of gross expenditures is shown on the next graph. That is actually reaching a level which the comptroller says is a little on the high side. But once we look at everything we do need to do here in the next few months, we might be able to allocate some of that fund balance to specific purposes. And that would be advantageous to us, particularly in qualifying for low interest loans. the next two graphs are recurring major revenue sources and recurring major expenditures. That is from the comptroller's office. They ask you to, they look at what's the regular recurring. Now we have more revenue than is shown here because we've gotten some ARPA money and other funds. But it does show that the growth is slowing down a bit. So, we have to be wary, whereas the expenditures continue to go up. I looked at a couple of different departments. We can see here that DPW is finally getting more of a share of our revenue. The numbers are starting to go up. The next one is the fire department, where we put in a fair amount of equipment and building outlays in the last few years. Police department also climbing up, not very much on equipment or capital. We're looking at hopefully relocating the police department. That's why we haven't spent too much on their buildings. Culture and recreation was down in 20 and 21 and is now in the last 2 years, receiving a bit more money as we're a little bit healthier. And the last one is our total debt service and principal. This is the amount we pay out every year towards our bonds. The increase in 2021 was, of course, the addition of the fire trucks, and we're starting to pay that off. So, anyone has any questions of that was put on? It just gives you an idea of where we were and where we are now, which is significantly in a better financial shape.
One of the things I want to highlight in terms of something that's a little out of context sometimes, and it's not the fault of yours, Liz, but this is something that I think that needs to be paid attention to a lot closer, is when you look at the fund balance, you need to look at the fund balance net of debt outstanding to really have an appreciation for where you are. You can have a lot of money, but you can have a lot of debt at the same time, and you need to know you can cover your debt ultimately. So we are in 7 figures and beyond on our debt level. So just because that fund balance looks so large does not mean it's a field day here or a time to go shopping willy-nilly. And the other thing I get a little concerned about is the discussion on low interest loans, knowing that having a certain level of fund balance precludes it. And the plus and the minus we're going to have to be aware of here is that the USDA loans versus our bond rates that we can achieve are about a quarter point, give or take, from what Julie and I have been discussing, different. I'd rather pay an extra quarter point and have our fund balance in the bank and gain interest on that as interest rates go up over the next 2 years, instead of going to spend fund balance for the sake of spending fund balance to get a quarter point less on my loan. And that's stuff we have to really be very transparent about and consider down the line, just for people to understand.
No, I wasn't talking about spending it. I think that's, given our needs, it was talking about allocating it. In other words, putting some fund balance in a fund to cover buildings or to cover equipment or to cover a certain department. It's the comptroller recommends not having too much in a fund balance, but reserving it for the purposes that you need. And we're a little, too soon to know exactly how much we need to put towards the water, how much we need to put towards DPW, how much we need to put towards these different purposes.
Julie and I have actually had that conversation, and I've got to tell you folks, and I'm not trying to make it blush, but you want to talk to somebody that has great knowledge on our financial situation day to day and eats, breathes, drinks this stuff. Julie is that person. She's taught me an immense amount in just a week of being on this job. Overall, is the comptroller going to come knocking on our door with the fund balance we have right now, or is there something else we should be looking at, or they should be looking at before they do?
So the comptroller doesn't actually put out any recommendations for fund balance. The biggest thing they look at is the justification of how much fund balance we do have. What Liz was referring to by putting money away into another fund, I think you kind of were referring to reserves. If we set up a reserve, which involves legal counsel, we can put money into capital improvements, equipment, building. And that money would be put into a reserve, and the comptroller wouldn't look at that as available or unallocated fund balance. This unallocated fund balance, though, as you said, I believe you said we were looking at 62% of our expenses for the end of this fiscal year. In retrospect, I don't believe that the comptrollers will have any significant say in that due to our infrastructure and equipment needs currently. So that's where we sit. We haven't been questioned by the comptrollers yet. I'm hoping to keep it that way, but the main purpose right now is justification. And within our infrastructure alone, not touching upon buildings or equipment, we would have that justification for them to, turn around and say that we have it justified in our fund balance with the 3.4 projected fund balance at the end of this year.
I just also want to point out one of the charts, fire department expenditures, it's a little bit deceiving. Remember that over the last few years, we've seen an increase in the rate paid by town of Milton and town of Ballston for fire protection services, and that's why the fire department expenditures go up compared to the police department, and I'm assuming DPW, go back the page, it goes up, but the steepest rise is fire department expenditures, but there's a good reason for that. They're going in a broader direction in terms of where they're providing their services and also getting some replacement equipment along the way that's being paid for by the towns at this point in time. Just to be clear and transparent on all the stuff that's going on there in those charts.
And these numbers are from the AUDs, which we will report to the comptroller's office, and then the last 2 years are the numbers from Julia. So just thought it would be useful for people to see what the relation to the past is. Thank you.
Any other old
I
business?
just want to
Go ahead.
comment. I just think this is excellent. It's great to see changes over time. I really appreciate you putting this together, Liz. I think it's very helpful for the public to see this. And I don't know, Julie, if you can do something like this in the future or not, if you're just too busy, but this I think is very useful just to spur conversation. Like, why is this going up? What is our fund balance doing and what do we need to do with it? Those are important conversations to have. This serves the purpose of transparency that we're all very concerned about. This is transparency. This is what's happened in the past up to now. So thank you for doing that, because it adds to our conversation about transparency and communication with the public. And I appreciate the opportunity that you had to present this today. Why did our fund balance go up by $900,000 in 1 year?
It's just projected. So the 2022, as you see as that header on the chart, is projections based off of our current year to date, and this was done in our budget. Our current year to date and our budget is based off of numbers from the end of January 2022. So using those numbers, I projected out for the end of the year, and based off of those projections, I can calculate generally about a $1 million addition to fund balance.
Through December or
End
fiscal
of
year?
this fiscal
Fiscal
year,
year.
yes. Now, obviously, there are a lot of unknowns with that. There's grants that need to be considered and moved from the capital improvement fund, Fund H, back into the general fund. That will be, obviously adding additional expenses. And there's other unknowns such as, let's say, we need a huge expense in the water department that could really take a huge hit on it as well. So it's just kind of estimations based off of our year to date as of January 31st of 2022.
But what are the sources?
You think
Why
sales
is that?
tax? Is it that sales tax was much higher than?
Which just low expenses and high revenues.
Right.
That's the way you're supposed to budget, conservatively on revenue, liberally on expenses, and hopefully the worst case scenario doesn't happen. You end up in that type of position. Look, also in, what was it, 2017, 2018, I remember Mayor Romano facing about $1 million of infrastructure disasters that didn't allow for him to build back up. You can see the drop from 2016 to 2017, and a lot of that has to do with the unknowns occurring. So that's why we have to stay protected at this point in time. Now, we've had a good streak of luck to a certain degree that we haven't had major debacles along the way with our utility and infrastructure.
Yeah, I'd like to add too that the comptroller doesn't have a cap on your budget, but that you provide recommendations on fund balance, and that's usually between 20-25%, which in our case is roughly 1 to 1.5 mil. Obviously, we have far above that. So that again, they're not gonna penalize you for having an additional budget, but that's their recommendation for a safety factor. Also, part of the reasoning that we've been having a lucky streak is because we've been doing some really good planning and we've been doing studies so that we know what we have. So I think that's important, and I think that the graphs here show the result of that. I do, differ in the sense that, yeah, a 0.25% interest doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're servicing debt over 20+ years for multi-million dollars, that adds up. So, I mean, if have a good safety factor, I don't see a reason why we should spend more of the village residents' money than we have to. So,
Well,
I think
Sean,
the,
if I may for a second, the thought there unfortunately is not fully exposed, because if you have $3 million in the bank at 3%, let's say if interest rates go up, versus $1 million at that same percentage, you're gaining more than you're losing in that quarter point, and that's something to consider. Also, the other thing that you addressed there about the size of the fund balance, again, justifications allow you to carry fund balance. Having a debt load right now of about $2 million and the equipment, as you mentioned, Julia, that we need to buy and other things that we have to take care of is easy justification to say we need to stay protected ultimately. Go ahead, Liz, sorry about that.
well, just saying on loans, what we, really need to do is whether we want to go for the USDA. One of the things is they do have longer terms and lower interest rates. So depending on how much we need and also how much we can get in grants, it's basically a mathematical thing.
Mhm.
Say you look at one financing source versus the other, and then you look at where you're standing, with your revenues and expenses, and then you make a decision on that basis. It's pretty much a mathematical process.
No questions yet. Public comment coming up a little bit later. But one thing to understand too is that I'm going to be working on a daily basis. Julia is right outside my office, probably sick of hearing my voice by now every day, but staying on top of it and changes and ideas down the line, especially with the DPW equipment question coming soon. I know Jen and I are meeting with Jeff on Thursday, I believe, to kind of go through a little bit of that discussion as well. So there's a lot to look forward to in terms of information. And we also have the actual budget approval on the 25th at the next meeting. Any other old business? Any new business anybody wanted to bring up? I'm kind of excited about this new section coming up. Took a while to get here, but here we are. Public comment related only to agenda items for consideration. Now that means basically you'll see in number 12, agenda items for consideration, A through Q listed. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to go through those. If you haven't, you have a few minutes probably to do so as your friends and neighbors speak out here. But again, this is going to be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. We're not going to attack you at the 4-minute mark. We're going to ask you politely, please wrap up that sentence, and thank you very much. But does anybody have public comment related only to agenda items for consideration? I see a hand in the back. Please identify your name and address and go ahead and stand up and speak really loud for us if you're in back, sir, or it's you, Ray. Just go. Your voice carries.
Do I really have to stand?
No, you do not.
It's gonna take a while.
I didn't see what you. I saw the hand, and then Paul moved out of the way. I'm like, it's Ray Otten.
Ray Otten, 16 Middlebrook Avenue. I just want to bring up here, looking at this agenda, we have 1, 2, 3 new volunteer members of the fire department. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more volunteers at the top that we're going to say, yes, you can continue to be volunteers and do all the good stuff for the fire department that you do. I just wanted to mention those and tie it in with the packet that we just got about the fire department expenses. Compare those to the police department. You've got to be real glad we got volunteer firefighters. Just from a dollar and cent standpoint. So kudos to all those that want to join and help out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that comment. Any more public comments about agenda items? Chief Crow.
Grow, reside in the town of Milton. I'm here representing the.
Come on into the camera so folks can
I was
see
told I
where
had
you
a
are.
radio face. So
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Get in there. You're good. Right there.
Kevin Grow, town of Milton. I'm here as the fire chief in Ballston spot. Mr. Farnham, I'm not going to pre-plan that house. We got to protect those. All right.
I'm all wired in.
All right, my friend. I want to speak on behalf of letter N, as in Nancy, on behalf of Lloyd Hellman. And I apologize, my assistant chiefs are not here tonight, and I do always like to get them in front of the village residents. Unfortunately, we're at a bad car accident since 5 o'clock. They're still there with the road shut down, reconstructing the scene.
Greenfield Avenue, correct?
Yep, reconstructing the scene with the sheriff's department. And thank you for reaching out. Anything that the board members can always do to help us, we would appreciate it. So as you see, a little choked up about that because it was a young person, and I think he's gonna be okay, but it was not delightful.
Was there a medevac involved?
There was, we brought the helicopter in. So I'm here to talk on behalf of Lloyd Hellman, who was up there since 5 o'clock. He's still there, standing in the middle of the intersection, probably getting yelled at by every resident that has to get home. Lloyd Hellman, I've known him for 35 years now, and I met him up in Hudson Falls when he was a business owner up there. I'm going on my 36th year in the fire department, and I was very fortunate to be there the night Lloyd Hellman was sworn into Eagle Valley Fire Company. He's on his 29th year, and as of today, he is a fire police captain and has been serving in that capacity for 12 years. Most of you know me in this room. I hold my people to a high standard when it comes to working under me. So Lloyd wouldn't be in that position if he didn't have that credibility to be able to perform that job. With that, 25 years in VFW, 29 years in the American Legion. And one last thing I'd like to say is that Lloyd Hellman is a 15-year, he's on this certain group of, it's the firing squad for the veterans of foreign wars. And he is on that squad for 15 years now. And that squad, that firing squad is consisted of a small group who work with the Saratoga County supervisors to find, they locate deceased veterans, okay, through the county supervisors. It's unfortunate these people cannot get their loved ones or even know them at that point, going back to war wars, okay? But Lloyd with that group, with Saratoga County supervisors, worked to retrieve certificates and medals that these veterans have deserved, they deserve what they have done in the past to be honored. So they're able to take those awards, locate the family that's present wherever they are, and meet with them and present them. So they're there to present their loved ones with awards that these people have, earned over time in the war. So my little spiel about Lloyd Hellman, and I would hope that with my credibility and my commitment to this village and the residents for the 36 years, you would understand and appreciate what I got to say in respect of Lloyd Hellman.
Thank you. And also prayers for the young person that is involved in that accident. It sounds horrible, but let's hope that everything is okay. And thanks for all the work that your entire department does in those moments. Reminder, anybody on Zoom, I do see a hand up there. We'll get to it eventually, but if anybody else on Zoom has any comments, now's the time to start raising your hand so that Jen can start assessing who to bring up onto the screen. We'll stay in the room for a second longer here at least, and I'll ask any other public comments about agenda items. Bob Bush, I see back there.
Bob Bush, anyone church have? I want to talk about item M and N. Philadelphia and Lloyd Hellman. I know both of them for years.
Good and loud only because we do have complaints sometimes on the microphone.
I've known both of them, Donna for the last 10 years, Lloyd for, I can't tell you how many, she's been my father for, I can't tell you how many years, but he has been here forever before he passed. I just want to test their character. They're one of the most honest people I know. They will treat you very fairly and honest. And I don't know anyone else that can do that, that is nominated for this board. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I meant to bring up in mayor's announcements, the St. Bob just reminded me, I wanted to thank the steering committee the other night for accepting as full members of this comprehensive plan steering committee, Pete Martin, Stephen Springer, and Bob Bush Jr. Remember, we had made them temporary alternates pending the decision of that steering committee, and they fully embraced them as being full members because they agreed they have a lot of work to do moving forward. So thank you to them, and thanks for appearing at the meeting and participating to both of you. Anybody else in the house here with public comment on agenda items? Christine Fitzpatrick? Or purple in your honor here, Christine. I know it's your favorite
Good.
color.
Yes, thank you. Christine Fitzpatrick, 31 Chapman Street.
Christine.
Gotta come forward, Christine.
Come on in the picture. We'll tell you when. Right there.
All right, okay. You have a big X, you do, yes.
If you get on the carpet, it looks like that starts the point where you're on. So
Kids
there you
would
are.
love that, they'd be ripping it up. Big X, but it's a great, that's what we need. All right, this is on points M, N, O, and P on the agenda. As I recall, it wasn't just a question of these appointments, but there was a question in both the bylaws of the Code of Ethics and the bylaws of the library. So I guess it's even more that about who appoints, where under, for example, if you're having a new official year, the mayor nominates and the board approves. But in both the bylaws of the Ethics Committee and the bylaws of the library, and I know this issue came up for me quite a number of years ago with the library, it was the issue of whether or not the final appointment is done by the whole board of the village. So I wanted to know if that issue had been resolved, because it was not just these individual people being appointed, it was also the whole process of appointments. And I was wondering if that issue had been resolved.
If I may, I just elaborate on what I stated in the mayor's announcements, and stop me if I'm going over something that doesn't answer this. But yes, the answer is that in the ethics board and library board, it is a committee decision, a board decision here. In 2018, the reason I brought this up
I
earlier,
understand.
2018, 2020, just to finish for everybody else that doesn't, there was a motion and a second approved unanimously by the board. In the case of Donna Duffy, both times, in the case of Lloyd Hellman in 2018, and we heard what happened in 2020. And library board, Carla and I went back and forth trying to figure out, because library bylaws don't in and of themselves control the board. They're not codified in our code, but there is state information or state regulations that state that about the library board. This is why Q has been added back onto this agenda once we got that clarified.
So with the library board of trustees comes up, and unfortunately, they both have the same name, the village board of trustees and the library board of trustees. So the library board of trustees nominates, correct? And then the village board approves.
I believe you had information as to your belief after doing research. I'll let you take it from there, just to be clear and transparent on what exactly has to happen, because this way we have minutes later on for whoever does this next in the future.
Well, if I could, can I find it first?
I
in my
could do a
email?
little song and dance act, and you know any good jokes?
The other thing, if I may, on what would be helpful, I think, and if you've unraveled, and kudos to you to unravel who the moving parts of who went this and what, because it boggles the mind. It would be helpful. One of the things I started to do is to list when somebody was appointed, who they were, for how long they were going to be in that slot and who they were replacing. And that way you don't just have a handwritten note, about, which is what I was finding, and I'm sure you found, crossed out and somebody else's name put in pencil. So I think for future reference, that would be helpful if we did it in that format, naming the person, saying how long they're gonna, the year that they're on for, and who they are replacing.
And just as she continues to look here, I'll buy her some more time. As Terry can vouch for, we did catch a couple of things as I look back to make sure we had the right staggering going on. I'll throw a little monkey wrench out there that folks need to realize too. If we move the official year to January 1st, we end up with a double appointment problem that we have to be very clear about who's getting appointed for which year because of the desire to keep these positions staggered eventually. So it's something that we can't lose sight of down the line, that will even create more complexities on this appointment process down the line. So by me saying that, please, somebody remind me in about 2 months when we get to this part of it to handle it. Take it away.
Thank you. If I had actually put library instead of agenda items, that would have been.
Good call.
Yes. So the reason that we are looking at this is because there's different kinds of libraries. There's free association, there's school, there's public, well, it was for the public. And Education Law 262 specifically states that it's the Board of Trustees that appoint. So it's not a mayoral appointment. It's not a board of, it's not the library that's appointed. The library can recommend, but there's nothing within the state law that says the library Board of Trustees appoints and then the village board confirms, for lack of a better term. It's, they can recommend, and just like with every other recommendation, the village board does what it wants to do. So
But it's the whole board. It's
Correct.
that, okay,
Yep.
all right.
And that's why Jim Carter's
Right,
5
okay,
years is on
I
there
get it.
tonight.
Uh-huh,
Yep.
Okay, all right.
What we did not want to do is make a mistake on it, create a big problem by going too early without the information. And as I
I
said last week, we
understand.
could roll them
Okay.
over.
Right, okay, and it's been an outstanding question. It has, like so many things, it has come up before. I know it came up for me when I was a trustee, doing library board appointments, how to appoint and how to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. We continue with public comment related only to agenda items for consideration. Anybody else in the room? Because I do see 2 hands on Zoom. And so if you'd like me to move on to those, I will suggest that Jen begin to do so. Dick, you'll have to unmute yourself. And I see you did. And please give name and address and go right ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Dick Duffy, 21 Division Street, Ballston Spa, New York. I just want to make a couple of comments on the Board of Ethics appointments. You got 2 individuals that are up on there that have been on there for quite some time, whether they were put on properly or not or whatever. They've done from the letter that Julia that's wrote that you read last week, Mayor, recommends them staying on, that they're a board that works very good together from different walks of life, et cetera, et cetera. And so after the conversation, and I heard Trustee Raymond was questioning my wife's residency, and because we do travel, whether we travel this year or next year, you never know. Last year we didn't, this year we did. That bears nothing to do with it. There's nothing in the law right now, in your ethics law, that says that a person can't travel. And why I say that is because Trustee Como's also said that when the governor opens up our state again, then you can't do a meeting on Zoom or anything like that for ethics. But if you do the research, which I did, I made some phone calls to some people that know ethics, and since you're going to be looking at, I believe, forming a board to write a new ethics policy, you can write that kind of stuff into your policy if that's a problem, where somebody from that is traveling, say somebody went away on a month to Florida or a week to Florida or wherever they went. If something comes up with ethics, you can dial them up. You know, it just has to be announced. There's a criteria that has to be followed, but it can happen. And Lloyd and my wife, as I say, they're both born in Ballston Spa, lived in Ballston Spa their whole life, volunteers, do whatever they've asked, and then some. And I really think that, I hope this board works together. Nothing against the other people that are recommended for the board. I don't know them. But I hope this board works together and keep the people that have been working as a team together. That's what our Village of Friends is about. Thank you.
Dick, thank you. Stay by there with unmuted for now. I want to raise one thing that you raised, and Carla, again, we worked hard this weekend. All of us did stuff like this, and then some. Yes. So this question came up. Carla wasn't here last week, so we'll blame Greg for not answering. Here's what the answer is in terms of Zoom or teleconferencing for normal meetings under open meetings law, and then the special sauce that got added this weekend, essentially.
Right. So first and foremost, although it sounds contrary, the ethics board is a public board, so it is subject to the open meetings law. Now, that being said, you're all sitting there saying, well, wait a minute, this is ethics. We're going to talk about this quietly. We don't want to hear, we don't want 100 people in the room. Well, that's fine. You just go into executive session to discuss it but you have to open the meeting. So right now, there is a law in place that allows people to, trustees, which would be, or board members, to appear via Zoom. Just wherever they are, we don't need to know where they are. They could be in their car. For whatever reason they want, they can appear via Zoom. That goes away when the state of emergency goes away. So right now, that's looking to go away. I think it's April 15th or 18th. It's the middle of April. If the governor doesn't extend the state of emergency, the public can always be there by Zoom, but none of the trustees, none of the board members of any public board can, unless. And this is the weird part.
But wait, there's more.
If, for example, Ms. Duffy is in Florida and there is an ethics board meeting, she can appear via Zoom in Florida for the meeting. However, everybody who wants to go to her house in Florida is allowed to go.
Yes.
Yes.
She has to say, it has to be on your notice is, this board member is going to be appearing remotely. They're going to be in this location at this time. The location has to be ADA compliant. You have to allow anyone to appear. That's always been the law. No one ever takes advantage of it, so no one ever knew about it, because honestly, if you're on vacation, you kind of want to be on vacation, so you just don't go to a meeting. We've all done that. However.
But wait, there's even more.
How do I say this? So the budget for New York State doesn't just discuss numbers. They try to put lots of laws in the budget for New York State, which makes my job difficult because then you're reading, and I'm sure Trustee Trustee Bernadette
Well done.
can attest. They're not the easiest things to read. So the governor has decided in their legislature to place a brand new section of law that might be passed that says, yes, you can kind of appear by remote. Maybe you can't, but if you do, you have to meet all this criteria. It can only be for certain reasons. It can only be certain. It's a mess, my non-legal opinion. So that's kind of out there too. And if the budget gets passed and that's in there, we're municipal attorneys are looking at that. Not very happy with it. It's not what we asked for. We asked for this. But at the end of the day, and I know this is a long explanation, I apologize for that. But at the end of the day, right now, appear by Zoom. April 18th, who knows? If the state of emergency goes, sure, appear by Zoom. If Miss Duffy is on the board and she wants to appear by Zoom, we're all going to Florida with her.
Yeah, we're coming.
Is that fair enough?
Do we need to bring our own towels?
How many bedrooms do you have? Things like that. And can you make some hors d'oeuvres for the meetings? Because these go long. No, I think it makes perfect sense. I will say, and you and I had been back and forth. I'm not trying to be Mayor Kim when I say this, but from a legal perspective that I have, it's unclear if that aspect of the location being on the notice has been taken away or in any way modified. As a broader point to this board, let me say that inside the law as we think it may be passed, it does set up the parameters that you need to set up some kind of policy on this
That's right.
to take advantage of it.
I actually think it's a law. They require us to have they require us to adopt a local law if we want to allow something like that.
And that doesn't just affect the ethics board, it affects us, it affects a bunch of different boards that we may want to continue with Zoom and how we do it exactly. So this is something to keep in mind no matter what, not just for this ethics board question. Welcome to tripping into a whole hotbed of issues unintentionally over the last week with what we were presented with in that meeting last week. Dick, did you have anything else you want to raise out of fairness to you? Because we just.
I guess what my point is, and it's not just about, like you said, the ethics board, it's not all the boards, because everybody goes away on vacation. This ethic boards, how often do they meet? Not very often, because thank God there isn't many ethics complaints. So, I mean, anybody could be gone away, went to wherever, et cetera, et cetera. And bingo, something comes up. Julie calls somebody and says, hey, we got to get together. We got to have a meeting. So anybody could be nipped at that meeting with the way it's done right now because they can't appear, we say. So next time around, are they going to be thrown off the ethics board because they weren't available for a meeting? I mean, are we setting a precedence here that we don't want to set? That's all I got to say, really.
Thank you, Dick. Appreciate that. I see two other hands still up besides Dick's. Let's see who they are. Can't read that.
I'm gonna allow Lisa S. allowed to talk. Okay.
I'm going to take a wild guess. That's Lisa Spidell.
That, you have that correct, Frank. Mayor
Go ahead.
Mayor Frank. Lisa Spidell, 106 Prospect Street. I'm just
Uh-oh, sorry. Oh, God, I lost it completely. I was trying
Okay,
to. get- I was
well,
trying to get
we
rid
do
of-
have another person, so we'll get Lisa back in the queue in a second
She's
here.
still up there.
She's still up there.
Hold on.
Lisa, you're back
She's
and
muted.
you're muted.
unmute. Am I on now?
You are. Go right ahead.
Hello, Lisa Spidell, 106 Prospect Street. Thank you to our attorney for clarifying the thing with, being out of town and such. Right now, it's, this is great. I'm not feeling the best, so I don't want to put myself out in the public right now. With that being said, I want to comment on Donna Duffy and Lloyd Hellman. I'm confused from the last meeting as to why there's even a question as to why they're not qualified to be on the ethics board anymore. It's if it was a question that they weren't appointed correctly for whatever reason, why was it just brought up? Why did they get to fulfill a term? And all of a sudden now it's a problem because, if that's the only thing, if they've done their ethic responsibility for this village and they've been fair this whole time, obviously there was never a question prior to this. Why now? And that's basically all I have to say because I'm not understanding that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Feel better.
Thanks.
Get her back on mute. And is Linda the next speaker?
No,
I'm not sure why Linda's up there.
I'm not either. Laura AC is next.
Lori Acey?
Allowed to speak.
Lori, name and address and go right ahead. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's Lori Acey. I'm a resident 25 Eastern Ave in the village. I'm also a member of the library board, and I just wanted to thank Field Thorne for his great presentation on the Brookside. It was really interesting and helpful. And also Mr. Farnan for bringing up the Chris Morley documents and also the tireless work of his wife. I have great appreciation for all of her time in organizing those documents. I had the great pleasure of meeting Mr. Morley when he was alive. Our house was built in 1906. And when we first moved to the village, he was super helpful, sat down with me and talked with us about the history of our house. And it was amazing. He was a really neat man. And one of the things I just wanted to mention in regards to the library and the collections in the back of the library in the basement level is that the library director and the board, we're now currently working with the University of Albany Library of Science major. She's going for her master's degree and she's interning doing about 150 hours of time, just, organizing the documents, coming up with finding aids. We're hoping that she'll be able to get some of these beautiful materials digitized so they can be shared on the library website. And I just wanted to, chime in quickly just to reach out to Mr. Farnan and say that I really do believe that the library director would be pleased to know about your wife's work, and it would be great to connect either through the Brookside, Mr. Farnan, or however we can to preserve that treasure. So thanks again for bringing all these topics up.
And Jen, I believe you and I have a standing appointment coming up with Andrea over at the library, so we can definitely bring this up to her this week.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Is that it?
Just want to answer Ms. Spidell's question about why now. The reason we're talking about this now is just because their appointments are up. That's why at this point in time we are talking about that.
Okay, any further public comment on agenda items? If not, not going to try to race through these by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to kind of power through to the degree we can. There's just a lot of things I think are going to be pretty easy to get through. So here we go. Please stay with me, board, and we'll get this done. I promised the clerk that she could play us at 50% speed, and probably it'll be okay. I need a motion to ratify the mayor's appointment of the following officers of the Ballston Spa Fire Department. Chief Kevin Crowe. First Assistant Chief Michael Bayshore. Second Assistant Chief Colby Crowe. Third Assistant Chief Bill Kenny. Secretary Stanley DeLong. May I have that motion? Motion by Trustee Bernadette.
You're welcome. Close. We'll work back. Close.
Would you like to second that?
I will say.
Okay, there you go. Second by Trustee Raymond. Any discussion? No need for roll call here, I don't believe. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and thank you again for all your service. Motion that Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company number 1 be granted permission to hold their annual tag day on 7/23/22 from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. May I have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion, Trustee Baskin, second
Second.
by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Nobody opposed? Motion carries. Letter C, motion that John Menzie be appointed as a member of the Ballston Spa Fire Department and be assigned to Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company number 1. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond and Trustee Bernadette on the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Motion carries. Letter D, motion that Colby Cox be appointed as a member of the Ballston Spa Fire Department and be assigned to Union Fire Company number 2. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cormos, any second?
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Motion carries. Letter E, motion that Victoria Van Valkenburg be appointed as a member of the Ballston Spa Fire Department and be assigned to Union Fire Company number 2. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond, any second?
I'll second.
Trustee Bernadette, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? No? Motion carries. Again, thank you to everybody on that list that we front loaded the fire department there, and as Ray pointed out, incredible job by your entire department. Thank you. Need a motion on letter F that Linnea Dinello from the Iron Roost be granted permission to conduct a 10th anniversary party in Wiswall Park on 5/15/22 from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Events include live music, crafts, and possibly a bounce house. All fit bounce houses. A permit will be issued upon receipt of proof of insurance. May I have that
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Trustee Bernadette, any second?
I'll second.
Second, Trustee Cormos, any discussion?
Sounds like fun.
I will pay money to see you in the bounce house there, Liz. There's my discussion. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Got to have a laugh or two up here with all the way to letter Q. Letter G, motion that cleaning contract with Daigle Cleaning Services be approved. It was attached to your emails. Can I get a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Trustee Raymond, any second? Second, trustee Baskin, Carla.
I have two comments on that. I went through the contract and there are some changes I'd like to make. They're not substantive. But if the motion can include that it will be approved, the mayor authorized to sign it. And then upon my revisions, they're not substantial, but some of them are like dates and things of that nature.
So after clerical errors are, clerical and date errors are removed, authorization for the mayor to sign this contract. The motion was made by trustee Raymond, was it? Or
Yes.
so will you accept that change to the motion?
Yeah, I'll change the motion that upon revision.
And our second approves of that change as well. Okay. Any further discussion? And
Is this the firm we've been using?
no, it's not.
So it's a new company?
Yes, it is. Time to vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed? Motion carries. H, motion to approve a corporate resolution allowing Mayor Frank Rossi Jr. to be an authorized agent with respect to all transactions of the village in and through Adirondack Trust Company. May I have that motion? Trustee Bernadette, trustee Cormos with the second. Any discussion? I will not vote on this myself, just so you know.
How many banks do we have funds in?
Just two at our trust and Generations Bank, and then an investment with New York class.
We don't have a relationship anymore with Ballston.
None. Yep, we took all of our accounts out.
And those were both the two banks mentioned were approved last week as the official depositories for the village of Ballston Spa. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? I abstain or recuse, which would you prefer?
You're gonna recuse.
I thought so. Just testing.
I'm with you.
The mayor recuses himself from that vote and it still carries. Motion in letter I that Jason McCanney be appointed as a part-time police officer for a period of 1 year. May I have that motion?
I'll make that.
Trustee Raymond, any second?
Second.
Trustee Cormos with the second. Any discussion? We'll move to vote. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Letter J, motion that the contract for Mo's Mowing in the amount of $18,000 be approved and the mayor be authorized to sign the contract. Again, it was attached. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond, any second? Trustee Bernadette, any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Did this go through the normal purchasing policy? Is this the lowest bid?
There was no requirement for an actual bid, but we did solicit 4 bids. Jen, you can talk about on how we solicited for bids, but it was at a minimum on the website.
For a while.
And this was the lowest?
That was the only.
It was the only-
Only, okay. So it is the lowest.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
If I might say, I thought the requirement is you had to get at least 2 quotes. Because this came up last year when I was trying to get quotes for Wiswall, and the mayor told me I had to get 3. And we couldn't move forward until I had 3 quotes.
Some of the public works contracts, because it's doing public works for the village, and off the top of my head, I don't know the requirements, but
So I was looking.
35,000.
Public Works, 20,000 for purchase.
I thought it was two verbal quotes, isn't it?
the ideal situation would be to get 2 verbal quotes. I don't know the threshold in which that minimum
That
amount
was,
needs to
that
be.
was it.
That was
that
it,
was
okay.
Up to 20,000, I think, or something. We have it in our emails. Anyway,
Well,
I think it's,
there's some, I don't know how, if that is an absolute requirement. I know sometimes if you request a quote and they provide you documentation that they decline to vote to provide a bid, that qualifies as a essentially a non-bid, but it shows that you've done your due diligence in regards.
How did we advertise? Just on the website?
Just on the website.
We didn't call anybody or reach out.
We put it up on the website.
I think, at least for future, I mean, I have no problem with them, it's local, etc. But I think for future, we need to go a little further and trying to seek people for these contracts.
And the opposition I'm in here is that knowing we only have one bid for a long period of time right now, we don't want to lose the bid and have a problem because the spring, it seems to be an early spring starting up. So I agree with what you're saying, that we'll do some better diligence, I guess, in the future, but I kind of came into this one being laid on my desk, and so here's what we got.
Also, was the budgeted amount 18 or is that over?
It was
budget?
greater, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had budgeted for 19,000 for fiscal year 2023. The odd thing about this is that we have two payment amounts, one going out at the end of this fiscal year, one going out at the end of, or at fall of next fiscal year.
So this does fit within the budget?
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody opposed? Motion carries. Letter K, can I have a motion to approve the mayor to send a letter to Senator Jim Tedisco's office on behalf of the Village of Ballston Spa supporting Bill S3968-A to develop a dedicated funding program to distribute funds annually to municipalities to ensure the integrity and reliance on municipal water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Bernadette, any second?
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, any discussion?
Is this bill covering, I was read a little bit about it, does it cover infrastructure needs or does it cover operating needs?
It's geared toward infrastructure. It's the.
I know it's for the water system, but does it pay for a new piece of equipment or a piece of equipment, or is it for their ongoing, personnel and other needs?
The intention of the bill, as it's been explained to me by Senator Tedisco himself, is that it's aimed toward the 100-year-old pipes, basically.
Okay, so it's for replacement of pipes.
Correct.
that's it.
And rehabilitation.
So do we know, I mean, the budget just passed, is this in it or out of it?
I asked Adam Kramer, who is one of his top level assistants today, actually, because as I said earlier, I was confused on that. He said it is still a relevant bill despite the budget. So they would still like to have our support on it if possible.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Any other discussion? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody opposed? Motion carries. It's okay. We'll let you guys exit in peace here. Letter I, or excuse me, letter L. I can read. Motion to request the mayor to work with the village administrator to schedule department head reports or presentations at regular board of trustees meetings at least once per year. And for board of trustee meetings without such presentation scheduled, to attempt to schedule reports or presentations from nonprofit organizations that receive village funds. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cormos, any second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Baskin. Ben, I did change that wording a little bit to be a little less mandatory, but still keep the overall faith of what you were asking for. I think we see that we may not be able to do everybody on a mandatory basis every year, and I would just at least try to embrace the spirit of what you were trying to do with that wording.
You're just worried about the timing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we have obviously enough meetings where we can have presentations for department heads, obviously. It's just everybody else down the line becomes a concern.
Yeah.
I think having presentations from department heads, a little, at least twice, it says once a year, but I think more frequently.
At least,
would be helpful to the board to see, what they're doing, what their issues are, et cetera. And of course, not profits don't need to, once a year is probably enough for that.
I think this is one of those spirit motions more than anything else. I'm not sure what would be the penalty if we didn't abide by it. So I think it just gives us a guideline here. Try to find a presentation when we know we have time to do it. I have a feeling this summertime, we're gonna have a little bit more leeway, as Ben and I were discussing on email. for such a thing, or maybe 1 or 2 per meeting. So let's see how this goes. And then next year, if we realize we can always make a little bit of a change to it.
This was trustee Baskin's suggestion, and I think it's proven to be very, very useful for both the board and the public to hear directly from the department heads.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
That's fine. Just want to clarify that the nonprofits are more than willing to come. The nonprofits that we fund, they're all happy to come. So it's not about them, not willing to. It's more about timing.
I think we're covered well here, and we know the intent is what we need to do to move forward. Now, all in favor? Aye. Nobody opposed? Motion carries. Now a motion, noting that this motion was tabled on April 4th, 2022, to appoint Donna Duffy as a member of the Board of Ethics for a period of 2 years expiring in 2024. Motion by trustee Bernadette. The mayor will second. Time to discuss.
We've heard from people that in favor of Donna and Lloyd, and I'd like to state that their service is much appreciated. Both of them have served for a long time on this board, and my feeling is that there are people who want to serve, and we should give opportunities to new people. And there could be other positions in the future that they could do. So that's my feeling about both of these appointments.
I'm also, I remain concerned about the extended absence of Ms. Duffy. It sounds like it's not known exactly to what extent year to year, it could be more or less, but I think that remains a concern of mine. And I prefer to have someone who is here more often than not.
On this side of the table.
Personally, I think Donna Duffy has served her community well, and I think that she should be given an opportunity to do so. She's been an asset to that board. The chair has said so, that she's content and happy with the current makeup. I would rather have continuity and some stability on that board than try to shift everything right now.
Sean?
I just like to say this has never been a question about qualifications. Donna, all 4 potential appointees are all very qualified. This was more about a situation where somebody's not necessarily here all the time. And it sounds like it's very convoluted that there might be a way where that doesn't matter. That being said, I would rather have a surety than something we don't know about.
Carl, any concerns in that realm from what our discussion was earlier, that she would not be able to participate if she was willing to fulfill the list your address on the notice requirement?
If she's willing to have people come to her house, if that's the way the law ends up reading, there's no concerns. It would just be like as if you decided to sit in your house, we would all go to your house. But again, that's always been the law. I don't
clean the place, you're saying?
Yes, or your building inspector can come after you. But I do, that is something, it's not done a lot. It's not done a lot. There's no legal impediment, but it's not done a lot.
I think Dick Duffy raised a very good point that this board does not meet a lot, period. And I see 2 of the members here that were shaking their head when I just said that. Andy Ryder, Peter Martin, just out of curiosity, twice in the last couple of years.
We went 3 or 4 times. Maximum 3.
So Dick's point is relevant and accurate in that respect. And so to suggest that it's a rarity to use the list your address as an alternate address idea, it's just as rare for this board to meet. And it sounds like more than half the year, which is what residency in the state of New York is defined as, Don Duffy is in the state of New York as a resident. So it's tough to disqualify, if you're asking me, based on residency issues, when I think we're going to have a load of issues that we're going to have to deal with anyway, with regard to Zoom in the future of Zoom in this whole situation. At least that's kind of what I was pointing at earlier when we were talking about rules of procedure and just how to word things, because I kind of knew had this ambiguity from the weekend that came up, and I did not want to rush through the idea of permanent Zoom meetings and what that exactly means down the line for various things, watching and participating. So we do have to think about that over the next couple of weeks a little more carefully. But in this case, I don't see a reason to disapprove of a renewal. And again, I think we do owe an apology for the way we characterize how Donna Duffy especially was put on this board. It was done with a motion, a second, and a board approval twice. And that was suggested not to have happened. And I think that's unfair to Donna Duffy in the first place. Whether or not that changes your vote, I don't know. I don't care. I think we need to at least embrace the fact that some people spoke without the proper information about that.
But she was appointed by the mayor.
She was, so did the mayor make the motion?
I don't remember.
No, the mayor can't make the motion.
So anyways, that's in the past. Let's move on.
Further discussion?
Trustee Bernadette? Yes. Trustee Raymond?
No.
Trustee Cormos? No. Trustee Baskin?
No.
Mayor Rossi?
For the reason that a person that votes no is the only person that can make a motion for reconsideration later on, if necessary, I'm going to vote no. I would ask the record to reflect that. May I have a motion, letter N, to appoint Lloyd Hellman as a member of the Board of Ethics for a period of 2 years expiring in 2024. Note that the motion was tabled on April 4th, 2022. May I have that motion?
I will make that motion.
Trustee Bernadette with the motion, a second. Second by the mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Can you or Carla explain what you just did again, a little in more detail, the whole vote, no vote?
You want me to, or you want to?
You can go and I'll pop in.
You can't generally bring up a motion that was voted one way or the other for reconsideration unless you were on the losing side or the winning side of the vote ultimately to reconsider. I have now voted no, so technically I'm on the winning side of that vote, and I would like to have the ability to possibly bring it up for reconsideration at a later time. Now, granted, I'm the mayor, and so there's a question on exactly how that would work, but I did put it into the record why I voted no. That's the most important thing for me on that situation.
I don't get it.
Okay, so it's a Robert's rules way to do it. And some boards use Robert's rules, some don't. NICOM is not a huge fan of them, but it doesn't, I mean, it's one way or the other. If the mayor were to vote yes, he would have been on the losing side. When you're on the losing side, you cannot make a motion to reconsider the original motion. Because he voted no, he was on the winning side. I know it's like, it goes, therefore he's allowed to, you know, or any of you are allowed to bring up that motion again for reconsideration. That being said, you can always bring up, anybody can always bring up the same motion again later on in the meeting. This is just a much more formal way of doing it.
And do we officially follow Robert's rules? Or?
It's unclear. I don't believe we do because we don't name it in our rules of
Right,
procedure as such. However, again, I'm just trying to stay religious to the idea to keep options open in this type of situation. So use it as you may down the line.
But that's a Robert's rules. That's where it comes from, Robert's rules.
Well, it's one of them. It probably originated from something else, but I know it's in Robert's rules, but that doesn't mean it's not in other rules. I personally don't read Robert's rules.
It's not like in law somewhere.
No, it's not a law.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can always bring something up.
I feel like we just became a how a bill becomes a law type of schoolhouse rock
Worked a
moment.
lot tonight.
You're a flat fee, you keep reminding me.
I know. Renegotiate that.
Okay, so we have a motion and I seconded that motion. Do we have discussion on Lloyd Hellman at this point?
I'll state that again, this isn't about Boyd's qualifications. Boyd's was actually appointed in the Romano administration, and he served a long time. And it sounds like he's involved with the community and the village in a lot of different ways. So there's a person who wants to get engaged in village administration, and as I've said before, I'm a proponent for allowing new blood into these boards. When somebody's been on the board for a while, and give somebody else a shot.
Any discussion on this side of the table?
I agree.
To again, just point out
Excuse us, folks.
that Julie,
Julie Gazitos.
thank you, has again indicated and was notified to us last meeting that she believed the current makeup of the board was effective, did their job well, and deliberated fairly on any complaint that came before them. So again, I just want to reiterate that the actions and discussion being held tonight is going to be against the person who's helping lead that team. So Lloyd is excellent, and it's disappointing to hear that he doesn't have the support from this board.
Definitely.
30 bucks on Amazon. I gotta use it at least once in the meeting. Folks.
And I also do have a concern that he was not appointed properly the last time. It's nothing about him as an individual at all, but I feel like we should not be rubber stamping something that was done improperly by former mayor.
Folks.
And so I'm not comfortable doing that.
I think a very convoluted manner is being used to disqualify a man that is very deserving of being on an ethics board or any other board that he desires to be on in this community. When our fire chief, Kevin Crowe, stands up and says, based on my integrity, I hope you can understand that this man deserves to be on that board with everything he's done and does. I think you almost have to stop and say to yourself, maybe I'm thinking too much about politics and not enough about the community, the residents, the people that do things that we don't ask them to do. They do it because they love our community.
Amen.
This ethics board will definitely be an important aspect of this community if we do change the code to be more representative of the town of Ballston's or town of Milton's type of ethics code. I think we all agree that the fact that the only thing that ours really covers is conflict of interest and not even very well is a problem. I think that ethics is something that we have a general problem with. I believe the only disclosure forms that have been signed so far by trustees were on their original year of election, and that they haven't been updated year to year, which is supposed to happen. And I just feel like we're kind of the peanut gallery at times, making decisions on things that we don't even fully understand board-wise ourselves. And that's not a good look. And that's not something I'm comfortable with. I think Lloyd Hellman knows more about the ethics board than any one of us does right now. And yet we're being judge and jury.
I agree that we need to relook at the ethics. For one, there's absolutely zero requirements for any kind of education. So citizen gets on, they make judgments as to people's ethics without any background or training. I think that's wrong. I think people should be required to have, like planning and zoning board, to have a minimum number of hours of relevant education. There are other aspects, but yeah. You brought up politics. Your question.
Folks, come
on. With over 20 years, appointments were made based on politics. I put in my name to be on the planning board under Mayor Romano. Had 2 letters of recommendation from the current and former supervisor of my previous town. I've taken hundreds of hours of training, zoning, etc. I was not picked. And that was definitely based on my politics. I did not agree with the existing, so I think it's time we give people an opportunity, equal opportunity in this one.
Liz, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, folks. I don't want this to come off the wrong way when I say it, but you raised this as an issue, and I don't think it's a fair statement. John Romano, you've said a lot about the man over the years. The one thing that everybody to a man in this room can say is that John Romano did not just appoint Republicans in his tenure. He appointed people who could do the job the best way possible, and that was frequent. People were well aware of some of the issues you encountered in New Scotland and made them queasy about appointing you early on. Whether true or false, it was known. And being a new person in a new area, it makes it tough for people to swallow. And I'm not trying to be mean-spirited when I say that. It's just a reality. To use your situation as a defining moment for whether it was political or not, ignores who the man was and sitting in this seat at that time, and ignores the reality of your own situations in New Scotland. I appreciate what you give back to the community. And I will be honest with you, if you were in this position right now for the ethics board, I would have reconfirmed you. But much of some people's chagrin, if you were doing a good job, and that's me being fully honest, hand on a Bible. I wish that you could do the same for this individual, especially under the circumstances that we've talked tonight. It could be a rhetorical statement by me. We can stop there and go to the next round, which is voting. Up to you.
Trustee Cormos,
No.
trustee Baskin,
No.
trustee Raymond,
No.
trustee Bernadette. Yes. Mayor Rossi,
For the same reason as earlier, no, for the ability to have motion for reconsideration if necessary. Please note that in the record. We're only just starting, folks. Here we go. Oh, please keep the murmurs down to the degree possible. Let us discuss this. Motion, or may I have a motion to appoint Catherine Carrie Kervin as a member of the Board of Ethics for a period of 2 years expiring in 2024.
I'll make the motion.
Baskin, trustee Baskin,
I'll second.
by trustee Cormos. Discussion.
Well, she's a longtime community member and a teacher, has a family here, raising a family, and has done a lot of good work for the community, and has outstanding credentials and integrity in my opinion.
Out of respect for how we handled last week, I would ask, is Carrie Kervin available in the room or on Zoom to answer any questions that we may have?
No. Got a lot of interest, doesn't she?
Did you folks notify her that she was up for consideration tonight?
Yeah, I sent a text. I don't know if she was.
Okay, so this was unfortunately an experience I noticed attending Revenue Advisory Board meetings. And Liz, you only provided a subset of the minutes when I asked for them last week.
I provided all the ones that were not on the web.
Okay, so overall, my experience was I only remember her at 2, maybe 3 of the Revenue Advisory Board meetings. How many Revenue Advisory Board meetings were there in total?
I don't remember. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Nine.
Excuse me, you're not supposed to
Okay,
speak.
well, Peter Martin, who's on Peter Martin, who's on the Revenue Advisory Board, or was at least, is going to state 9. Is that correct, Peter?
At least 9.
Thank you. Okay,
Well, she did have a death in the family, her father, I believe, and she said that she had to leave that committee because she had so many things to do relative to his estate and dealing with that.
The last meeting I remember of the Revenue Advisory Committee, she was actually part of when it was the water discussion that got ignored eventually, if I remember correctly. Peter is shaking his head in the affirmative, just for the record's sake. So here's the problem, folks. Last week, we bent over backward as a group to embrace Nathan Ward and Michael Ragabarone to carry them over for the planning board alternate positions. And this idea that, you know, tisk on not going to meetings and everything, but we were still going to monitor it for the future, that it mattered ultimately. We just didn't think it was being conveyed correctly. So either Liz, you didn't convey your meetings correctly, or somebody ignored the appearance except for perhaps when a loved one died. I can't ask her the question, she's not here, out of fairness. I just smell a consistency issue at the end of the day going on here that I don't appreciate.
Was it required for appointees to be here? Was
It
that made
was-
clear?
It was weighed as an idea in terms of the lines of questioning I went through in appointments over the last couple of weeks or couple of weeks prior to the organizational meeting.
Were all your appointments available for comment?
At this meeting right now,
No, previously.
or done
At
4-4,
At the organizational meeting.
I'm not disqualifying her based on that, in my view. I'm disqualifying her per se, based on a previous committee that she was a full member of, that she didn't attend 6 out of 9 meetings, I believe, give or take. I can't say for sure it was
Well,
3, but that's what I think it
should we
was.
stop with the maybes? You know, she was maybe, and just get to a vote.
No, this is discussion, and this is part of the motion practice that we've approved of. And so there's discussion ongoing. And I respect that discussion. And remember last week, I allowed a tabling to occur when technically we were out of discussion, but we did it, and I want to be fair about it. Any discussion on the side of the table?
Through the email chain. Oh, sorry. Speaking up, I'm bad at that. Through the email chain, when we asked about who your appointments, who you thought you wanted to appoint, Sean had emailed at one point, did the people even agree to it? Has that been the case? Like, we don't know, you know, we haven't, I don't have information on it. I mean, it'd be.
No,
Oh, yeah,
well, both people have,
They know what's happened.
they confirm that they are interested in the position, yes. We wouldn't nominate somebody who
Didn't want the position.
didn't want the position, wasn't willing to serve.
Well, again, going to committee she was on, she didn't attend.
That was how many years ago? And she
Well,
had,
how many years ago about Lloyd? You know, I mean, I don't know. Just,
Where do you draw the line?
yeah.
I don't see how one has
Well,
anything to do.
in
with
general,
it.
I found her to be very dependable, and people do have crises in their lives at different times that do interfere with other things, and that happens to everybody. But in general, I think I feel comfortable saying that I found her to be very reliable and dependable.
And I know Carrie personally as well, and she's always, you know, been a very forthright person, very involved in the community. She expressed her interest, and I think she's a good candidate for that. Now, I don't know what happened there. There's things that happen in everybody's life in a particular point in time, and if you want to cherry pick it and put blinders on and decide that that represents the entire breadth of that person, you can do that, but it's incredibly short-sighted.
Where is at least a statement from Carrie Kervin on why she wants to be on this board? Now, we generally didn't ask people already on boards to do that in terms of Donna and Lloyd, because we knew the entities and their performance is what we were basing it on those committees.
I've never heard of.
That's not the
in
question.
past. Well,
I didn't ask her for a statement. She
yeah,
would have provided one. I asked, but I didn't think.
yeah, there's no precedent.
So maybe that's something in the future we should again add to our procedures if it's anybody who is. Yeah, but
Christine's
That's for
last
the
meeting,
future.
she had all these letters from people that she appointed. I mean, it would have been nice from somebody new to hear what, why, what their interest was. I just,
we can add that in the future for future appointments.
And for the record, I did ask Mandy Ryder for a brief passage, or actually, I think Rory did on my behalf, and Mr. Frederick as well. So if anybody had questions, I had that circulate ultimately. Nobody ever asked for them. You did as well, Anna Stanko did for zoning board. So I did do the diligence to get the information to the degree that people wanted it or needed it ultimately.
Well, if that was something you required or were interested in, you should have said
I think
so.
it's called courtesy.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. We should do that in the future.
Yeah,
We should do it in
yeah.
the future.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think that if we want to set some sort of procedure and protocol for appointments, that there's a certain requirement. Absolutely. I think moving forward, that'd be a great thing, but that's not what we have right now. There's no requirement. So.
Is Smart Growth Ballston still an established organization or not, folks? I'm asking as a question. This is a legitimate question.
It's not active.
It still has a Facebook page with posts, so I
That's
just want to make sure.
Well,
Well, you say yes.
It does have Facebook. Yeah, we use that Facebook page continues as, so as much as anybody who has a Facebook page, you can say they're active. That's what, yeah.
But it's an ongoing organization.
No, we don't meet. We don't have meetings.
You're both members.
We consider ourselves members in the sense that, yes, we've been members, but anyone can be a member. Anyone can say they're a member if they support the values of the organization. There's no dues, there's no sign up, there's no list of members. So, yes, lots of people are members in the sense that they support the goals of Smart Growth Ballston, but it's not like a actual active organization that meets and plans things. So that hasn't
I'm
happened
trying
for
to
a while.
follow the line of logic here.
Yeah,
Is Smart Growth unethical?
Yeah,
Is that what
right. Yeah, what is that? Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
I don't know that this is
line of
relevant.
no, yeah, that's what Frank's saying.
Well, what is he saying?
Well, I'll let him speak for himself on that. Ask him. Ask
There's,
for clarification if you're confused.
Like we are.
and I think I raised it last week, but I think we're being purposely dense on this, unfortunately, which is if you're working with somebody in something outside the village business, you look to me all the time and ask me questions about when are you going to recuse yourself, right? What are the parameters to recuse yourself with your business interests or your family's business interests? Well, now the shoe's on the other foot. At what point, you can shake your head all you want, Liz.
We will.
So,
Lots of people in the
so
audience
by
do.
shaking your head
So
means,
just keep talking.
shaking your head means that you're saying, no, recusal doesn't apply to you.
There's a big difference.
And now you're shaking your head,
between-
yes,
Not-
yes, recusal doesn't apply to you.
It's
that what
a
you're saying?
very
My
big
response, and
difference.
I already told you this last week, that you don't give up your First Amendment rights in order to join a committee or a board. The fact that
Your vote is not a First Amendment right. You're representing your residents, Ben.
Can you let him finish?
Yeah.
That is a statement he made last week that was wholly inaccurate. That is not a First Amendment right, a right to vote in a meeting as a representative. That is not a First Amendment right.
her Catherine Kerwin's support of Smart Growth's principle does not eliminate her ability to hold a committee membership.
That's not the question.
And because we agree on certain, what is in this case, irrelevant to this discussion, principles of development and growth, because we agree on certain things, and we probably agree on other things as well, that is irrelevant. And it does not mean that me, Liz, Sean, or anyone else needs to recuse ourselves because we agree on certain ideas about development. That's irrelevant.
It would have relevance if she was going to the zoning board of appeals or the planning board I would definitely say, but the argument on Board of Ethics is anorexic. So I don't really see it. It's not germane.
Or any thoughts?
Again, there's a number of things that, again, I just don't support this. We have two people that were well qualified. Their boards, their committee, excuse me, wanted to continue with them. You know, honestly, it's frustrating, and she could be a very fine person. I don't necessarily know her, but again, we don't have information about her. She didn't get a statement from her. She's not here. I mean, personally, I just can't support it.
Sean, you and I discussed something in my office Wednesday, I want to say of last week, or Wednesday or Thursday when you came by, that I don't want to read in terms of public discussion per se. Did you do any further diligence on that question that I raised? I know you didn't feel it was something that mattered, but to me, it showed some level of problem if the way it's been characterized to me is accurate.
I did get further information regarding the incidents with Carrie's dog. And there was a dog fight. I think the dog ended up tumbling under a fence and getting out. So it was an enclosed area. So that can happen to anybody.
Was she required to muzzle the dog
Not
after?
while it's within its fenced area,
But
no, only when it was outside.
well, the fence is outside and
Well,
the dog got loose
It
somehow,
was
right?
in an enclosed area.
This
I
This
don't
has
know.
nothing to do
but I
with
think
Carrie. Her
This
ethics
is
or her
really,
dog got out of the fence.
Yeah.
we're really
Yeah, we're really.
pulling the threads here.
Yeah, really, come on.
What Ms.
Oh.
Kervin told me is that she had the fence installed precisely to keep her dog in at the request of her neighbor who had a small dog, was worried about that big dog, rightly so. And that the fence installer did not install it well, and one of the posts was loose and the dog got out, unfortunately. And that is unfortunate and I think not necessarily relevant to this.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with her ability to perform on the ethics board.
And I think it's really a bad reflection to try to dig up.
You can think that all you want, Liz. Unfortunately, somebody's not following a police order and somebody's dog got killed in the process before, and there's a vulnerability left because of the failure to follow that order. It shows me a little bit about the person's passion for rules and law. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you. The neighbor, Nicole Cody, told us there was a court order that the dog needed to be muzzled in the street. I don't remember if they ever walked unmuzzled outside after that. It was certainly not muzzled in their backyard.
So that's pretty clear, in the street, it wasn't in the street. So I don't even know why we're having this conversation.
So you don't find it concerning, that's fine.
I just don't think it's germane, that's all.
Are you ready to vote? Any more discussion?
Trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Cormos,
Yes.
trustee Benedette. No. Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Abstain.
What's the reason for abstaining? Or you want-
That's my business.
Well, it is a public meeting we're in. but-
Here's the reason, Ben, because I do believe Smart Growth Ballston is relevant and the appointment was made in a certain manner here because of relationships made on Smart Growth Ballston and continue on Smart Growth Ballston. And I can't render a great decision or opinion on a vote, I feel here. So I didn't recuse myself from the discussion, but at least I'm going to abstain myself from voting in that situation. I'm going to practice what I preach at a certain point of that discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks for an explanation.
P, motion to appoint Danielle Thompson as a member of the Board of Ethics for a period of 2 years expiring in 2024. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond, second.
I'll second.
Trustee Cormos. I don't know who the heck Danielle Thompson is, to be honest with you. So could somebody fill me in? Is Danielle here?
She's working this evening. She said she couldn't make it. Yeah, I talked to her this afternoon.
Tell me about Danielle.
She is a long-term resident of the village. She owns her own business. She's been active in the community and is interested, well regarded.
Anybody else want to tell me about her?
I don't personally know her, I know of her, and everything that I've heard has been positive, so.
Ben, any further details to provide?
Well, I just know that she's very easy to work with. We've interacted on different community projects, and so she's very smart, and I think she do a good job.
What community projects, out of curiosity?
Well, the one I was thinking of is different election campaigns for Christine, most recently.
I wouldn't call that a community project, Ben, but I appreciate the honesty with the answer. One second, Christine, I just want to go around the horn. I think I know why you're raising your hand on it. Brenda, any questions beyond that before I let Christine pipe in on this? Christine, with respect, go ahead.
I can speak about Danielle Thompson, and she's a very dear friend of mine. She is, I think, a 40-year resident of the village of Ballston Spa. She's married to Jim Carter. She does have her business and has done a lot of work with that. She's a licensed appraiser. They have an antiques business. That's what she's probably working at tonight. She has done she does a lot of volunteer work that is unattributed. She has, as Jim has with the library, she has come in and done a lot of, unnoticed, attributed things. She's helped the library figure out what, for example, any of the stuff, the collections that they have are valuable or not, or what should be sold or what should be kept. She's gone through the whole National Geographic's room where we have and figured out what should be saved and what should. She and Jim, for example, took home the benches and chairs that you see outside here. Took them home, stripped them down, put them, painted them, brought them back. I mean, all of this stuff, a lot of the stuff she does, it's quiet. She's not behind the scenes. She's behind the scenes, and you wouldn't necessarily know that she's done it. The other thing that I can say about her is that she's very high moral code, and she is very, she is bipartisan. She is, she has a very even view of politics and people in it.
Has she represented any Republicans and campaign?
I don't know. I
Just
don't
out of
know.
curiosity, because we know that she represented your PI campaign.
She
so
worked on my campaign. We're friends, as I said. Yes, yes.
Just want to make sure that information
And
will
I
tell
can
me
tell
right there.
you,
in
I can
bipartisan.
also tell you her only hesitancy with this.
Yes.
I mean, I'm hoping to God she forgives me for, having her whole credentials and her life, and I'm not the one who volunteered her name for this. I am not the person who put her forward. That right hand, you've been talking about swearing. I am not the person. I am not the person who put her name forward. So I'm hoping, but and her one hesitation is always because things are so political and get so ugly. And Carol, I don't know, you know Danielle very well. She is one of the best neighbors I have ever encountered. And she is one of the reasons that I got involved in politics, because I felt that I had to give back to my community and my neighbors in a way that was helpful, and Carol knows her very well too, so she can.
Excuse me, I'm just a little confused why Christine can speak on her behalf at this point. There's no public discussion at this point on this.
Out of respect under the circumstance, Donna,
Because the trustees don't know anything about it.
Exactly.
I'm trying to be fair in this circumstance. I'm trying to practice, as I said, what I preach on this discussion and give a pretty vibrant information gathering, because unfortunately in this situation, we don't have great information. But look, I'm reading tea leaves here. I can count to 3. I know I can't even make or suggest a motion to table and get a table if I want to, because they're not going to. So the best I can do for our residents and our community under this circumstance tonight is to ask for the information. So at least we're all operating with the same level of transparency they claim they have on these folks. And at least know in our heart of hearts, we did some deliberating and it wasn't just merely a political scenario through and through, at least not on my part and not Bernadette's part. I also did do a little diligence with respect to Julie, and I'm going to share this out of respect. When I told her who the trustees were suggesting, aside from Bernadette, who trustees were suggesting, and said Daniel Thompson was one of them. And Carrie, she stated to me, I don't know Carrie, though I know of her. I know and like Daniel Thompson a lot. I'm just not sure that the urgency of change is necessary. I know there is staggered appointment rules, but I can't remember the rules of reappointment. I'm just suspicious of the motivation behind this. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I apologize, Julie, if I went further than she wanted me to on a text message where we were having a discussion about what was the result last week, because she was curious. And I hope you, in 2 years, remember that Julie took a very, very vivid interest in her board. And don't penalize her for being open-minded and the term limit her out or anything like that. Now, having said that, she was honest with me about Danielle. And I respect Julie enough to probably even vote yes on this. But folks, politics, this table is a no politics zone from here on out, period. I am sick of this. I tried to show you by example a week ago that I was ready to put down that entire approach, and you aren't following suit one bit. I don't appreciate that. I don't think the residents appreciate that.
No, not at all.
Enough's enough. If discussion is over.
I'll just respond to that. I mean, there's a lot of politics.
You're gonna win the vote, Ben. I mean, do you
No,
really
but I
want to
just
go
wanna
here?
respond. So there's plenty of politics you did, and I don't blame you for it with the appointments last week and with the way you change around the liaison positions, and that's your prerogative. But I wouldn't say there's, no politics on your end. Like, I think there are politics that are just part of doing what we're doing.
I really take issue with that statement, Ben.
Okay.
Okay, generally the mayor retains police. I did so. Bernadette got very close in terms of understanding the fire department's needs. That's why she was that liaison. Deputy mayor, she is tireless. Many of you are too, don't get me wrong, but I've just seen her work firsthand, okay?
Well, Sean's been deputy mayor and been doing a great job.
Yeah, and Sean and I had a conversation where I identified, I was thinking about making Bernadette deputy mayor.
I don't have an issue with that.
Exactly. And I said to him, I want to keep you as DPW. Do you want anything else? He said, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so to sit there and do that, the only concerns really were parks with Liz because of the Wiswall Park debacle and seniors with.
Well, those are, you're getting political, Frank.
That's not political.
Yes,
It's all politics. It's all politics. That's the only thing, we have to go into I just trying to make a point, there's a lot of politics, not just some of us, but we're all political.
And you and I had the discussion about the senior situation, and we landed on what I think is a healthy compromise under the circumstances. So how, to sit there and say you're being political with your appointments and liaison decisions, even with my liaison decisions, I didn't take all your liaison positions away and say, nah, 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 nah. So please, let's be realistic here. I'm trying to be fair to our residents in every way possible by trying to take the politics out of it. It's not happening. Let's go to the vote.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Bernadette,
No, again, being consistent with Julie's comments about her board, I cannot support that.
trustee Cormos,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
Yes.
Mayor Rossi,
I'll vote yes. Jim Carter's name a moment ago, so here we go again. Q. Motion to appoint James Carter as a member of the library board for a period of 5 years starting in 2027. May I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cormos, second.
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, any discussion?
He's been serving in the position. The board recommended him, which they, according to the.
You don't even have to debate this, Liz, because again, the only thing that was precluding it was to make sure we had the correct method down, as we stated in multiple emails, and this is not, as I said to Andy Mannion, it was not attempting to name somebody else. It was an attempt to make sure we had it right. And I'm, again, hand on Bible. Christine and I think are going to start using that terminology or that phrasing, but here we go. With no discussion.
trustee Baskin,
Yes.
trustee Cormos,
Yes.
trustee Bernadette,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes. And we're going around the clubhouse turn here with other business. Any? Hearing none. Okay, folks, I can't gavel you to death on this one. It's public comment on all village business, 4-minute limit per speaker. Henry's is going to be closed for anybody that wants to drink after if we have more than 2 speakers.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I know. Yeah, so I ate half a bag of bugles because I was like, this is gonna be a painful night. Anastanko, name and address, please.
Anastanko, 32 Kent Street. I'm gonna start off with some good stuff. I work very closely with the treasurer's office at Saratoga County, and they work very closely with several village treasurers, town tax collectors, etc. And Julia is very high respected.
She's blushing.
When the books come in, there are very few questions. Sometimes it's a hand holding throughout the whole procedure, but kudos, Julia. I hope we can keep you. Liz, you're on the parks thing. I guess I would just say, are there any plans to do something with the playground down there? Because, I mean, I was on the group that worked with it, as many of you were, and there hasn't been a lot done since then.
The playground in Kelly Park?
Yeah, it's pitiful.
There was a,
Point of order.
oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That was public comment and then.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You know what, I'm not, okay, as a presiding officer, here's what I gotta say. If Liz wants to answer right now to dispense with the drama of it all, feel free to, Liz. I'm not taking her time
Oh,
away to
sorry.
do it.
Just let me say too, and the signs in front of the pool in Kelly Park, I've been bitching about those for 15 years. It's an embarrassment. So if, I don't know what the parks meetings do, but perhaps they could look at the parks and start fixing them up.
They are exactly doing that.
Okay, because
The
I was here
signs,
last
the
summer.
signs they're in the budget.
Okay.
And.
One thing I gotta ask you, it's just requested by the clerk, let's not talk on top of each other. It makes the reporting impossible to figure out. So please, one at a time, out of respect.
Your first point on the playground, there was a volunteer day with National Grid that Jen arranged and has been painting and stuff. If there's additional work, it should be noted, and DPW hopefully will take care of it. But and this Mr. Otten talked about that Rotary and Lions are going to be putting in a new small playground next to the pavilion. So Ray can tell you about what happens in Park and Free, but they're Working on all the parts.
Okay, that playground's been severely neglected since it's been put in.
I know Jeff's gonna add some wood chips alongside that, playgrounds, play set as well, so they're definitely taking some interest in it, to make sure it's looking better, at least in that zone, so, but I do appreciate that comment. You have about a minute and a half left.
Thank you. The only, I'm just gonna make a comment. Liz, I'm not sure how you could vote on Donna and Lloyd's appointment when you were the one, I believe, that there was an ethics complaint on. To me, I would have abstained if I would have been on that vote. But that's you, I guess.
That was dismissed.
No, I'm just saying, if there was an ethics complaint filed against somebody, I would, with my ethics and integrity, I would have abstained from that vote, just because that's who I am. And when you're talking about Gary Kervin and Danielle, I mean, I'm around the village all the time, and I wouldn't know those people if they were sitting in the front row. So when you're saying they're involved in all this stuff in the village, I'd like to know what, because there's hardly an event that I'm not at, and I wouldn't know these people. And my other question would be to you, did you reach out to them and ask them to serve on these boards? Because Cameron told me that that's what you did with him. He didn't ask to be on the zoning board. You reached out to him and asked him to serve on the zoning board after I had specifically requested that Gary Dale, who was my alternate, who is a Democrat. I didn't care what he was. He's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable. I had requested that he be appointed. So if you are reaching out to these people, asking them to serve, I think that's kind of ass backwards, because when I wanted to start serving at this village, I went to the mayor and said, here is what my talents are. Where can you use me? And he said, on the zoning board. You'd be great for the zoning board, given my background. That's what a true volunteer should do. Reach out and say, where can you use me? Am I good on parks? Am I good on streets? Where do you want to put me? Not, hey, I want to put you on the ethics board in case I'm ever charged again. Hey, I want to put you on this board.
Yeah.
You don't specifically, she talked to, so
I know, I gave you the extras.
okay. That's all I gotta say is, you know what, if you really want to care about this village and you really want to volunteer, you ask to be put where you can be used the best. Trustees don't reach out and try to appoint people to these boards.
Okay.
Yep.
Gina Morosi.
We go.
Gina Morosi, 10 Oak Glory Lane. We'll savor the spiel there. Go ahead.
What aggravates Gina, volume 2? No, I'm just kidding. First, the good news.
Stand on the carpet for me, okay?
I will get my stuff together.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's taken you 59 years to get it together. I'm not sure why it'll change now.
Okay, I know it was mentioned by you, and thank you. The Easter egg hunt was a huge success. I just wanted to acknowledge those that helped real quick. Of course, yourself, Mr. Mayor, Supervisor Scott Ostrander, our donors, Curtis Lumber, Mr. and Mrs. Frank Rossi, Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company, Union Fire Company, the Ballston Spa Elks, the Ballston Spa Lions, Community Emergency Corps, Ballston Spa Rotary, and Hannaford. They all contributed to it. Then we had our volunteers. I just can't even begin. I literally have 2 pages of volunteers, from being the Easter Bunny to stuffing 3,000 eggs, to hiding 3,000 eggs, to corralling hundreds of screaming kids. We got it done. It was fantastic. It was so appreciated. The parents were just so thankful. So all of you that were there, please give yourself a hand. I really appreciate it. Cost to us, we had literally days to put it together and we got it done. Good news, good things for the community. By the way, we asked, we volunteered, Liz. We weren't appointed to it. Consistency. Let's talk about consistency for just a few minutes. Lloyd Hellman lived here all his 70s, whatever years, served on a committee, was serving on a committee. No good, time for new blood. When it came to Mr. Carter's appointment, which I'm not downing, your reasons for appointing him. Served, he's been serving on the board. That's okay. He's been serving, no new blood needed there, right? It's the mayor's correct. Stop with politics. Stop it. Let's go for the best people for the best positions. Let's go for people that serve the community. You wanted to talk about your other, what's her name, the one for the.
Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle, being on the ethics board, that she does so much for the community. You mean like Lloyd? Who has served years and years to this community between fire and military? That wasn't good enough. But Danielle painting some benches out front and going through National Geographic magazines, that's good enough. Okay, I just, consistency again, folks, okay? Consistency and fairness.
If I may, we shouldn't be weighing one community effort against another.
No, but be consistent.
They are both giving back to the community. I never want to undercut that.
I'm not.
I just wanted to state that though, for a record.
Excuse me?
Folks, stop. I just want to state for the record that that's not part of what this discussion was, and it should never be part of it. If you give even an iota to this community, you should be embraced for it, and we appreciate it. The discussion tonight was basically saying ignoring one person's isn't fair totally, and I want to be consistent on that. Thank you.
I'm reclaiming my time.
You got it.
And that's exactly right. And I think I said in the beginning, I'm not downing him. I wasn't downing Mr. Carter or his wife. I'm just saying that you raise one so high and ignore the other. That's not consistency. Lastly, Julia, fabulous job. And for Ben to say that Liz's report was transparent and great, maybe it was. I find you to be very transparent. Okay, that's your job. Finances is your thing, and it should be left up to you. That's it.
And I will say, Julie is so transparent, she will tell me no in a heartbeat if I even open my mouth and say, hey, let's spend something. And the entire office knows that as well. And so she knows what she's doing and talking about. And again, what Anna raised earlier is huge. Any other public comments? I saw Carol Johnson.
Do I have to stand up there?
You can wherever you want.
Thank you. There's a couple of things.
Name and address.
Oh, Carolyn Johnson, 91 Church Ave, better known as Doubleday Ave. Woods. Well, thank you. I almost forgot where I live.
It's a long meeting. It happens.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Couple of things. I was sitting back, as I usually do, listening to all this, whatever you call it. And about Catherine and about Danielle, I was listening to you guys knocking Lloyd and Donna. But these two are not here. They're not even on a Zoom. Who knows if they're working? Who knows if they're home? Obviously, they're really interested in being on the ethic board because they're here. Right? You see them? I don't. But yet you can take it out on Donna and Lloyd. All these things you said about them, you could turn around and say about these two, and you want to put them in. It doesn't make any sense. Where's the respect for these two that have been doing this job for how long? And you got two that you guys appointed that's not even here. You people make no sense at all. You still have not learned how to have any respect, and I'll talk how I want it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Peter Martin. Name and address.
It's gonna be hard to follow.
Pete Martin, 20 Chesterwood Court, Boston Spa. A few things. Julie, you've done a great job. I have some questions, but municipality is different than retail. I don't understand all the codes yet. So it's all right if I come in and you, right? But one thing that hasn't been mentioned here, and I think Julie, you'll say this, you got to give a lot of credit for what Larry has done with this, what Liz gave us. Larry deserves a lot of credit. Former Mayor Larry Wilford for what he did. Carol, Christine, yeah, I can't never say your name. Uchis, did you get that right? Uchis. They're I've known them forever. They're good people. We're still a completely divided community. What we're doing. I mean, I talked to Bernadette to let's try to get all on the same page. But if you would just bet and just let them stay on the ethics, why couldn't they stay on? Why couldn't we have an expanded ethics committee? Is there, like, couldn't we just say yes and just, no, we couldn't do that? I mean, we gotta start trying to work together. We're not. You guys are just going, I don't know why you didn't want to put them on there. They're very, Mr. Carter's been here a long time, but so were the other two people. The same reason, there was no reason why they shouldn't be on it. We could expand it and everybody would have been happy. But you guys still don't want to work. I don't understand what's going on here. I really don't. It doesn't. And as far as more education on the ethics, that's a great idea. But really, our ethic code is horrible. What's happening in our village is not good at all. And you guys could have changed it tonight by just letting them stay on. I mean, it would have been the right thing to do. If I'm wrong, but I mean, I just, that's all my time.
No, it's not your time. Just asking others to let you have your time.
I mean, we have to start trying to work together. It's not working out what we're doing. This is no fun. No fun for me. Ben, you've done business with me. I mean, I think your son just bought pictures for me. Does he play lacrosse?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you could have just let him stay on, I mean, and it would have been a bigger committee. That's all that would have been. So if we can kind of get that thinking going, then I think maybe we'll get in the right path. Because you guys are going to get a lot accomplished if you can do that. I really think you will, because you got all the brains up here. But unless we start doing that, it's not going to work.
Ray, you had your hand up earlier, I know. Let me, I don't ignore you if you still want to talk.
Ray Allen, 16 Middlebrook Avenue. Thank you for not making me stand up there.
You got it.
Education for ethics. Ethics are about moral values. Ethics are about doing things properly. I'm offended by you saying we need to have more education. We have people on there with no education. Liz, I never went to college. I'm running multi-million-dollar businesses all through my career. I never went to college. It's not the degrees you have. It's about how you run your life when you're talking about ethics. It's moral values. Somebody with education doesn't necessarily have better moral values and can figure ethics out. Okay, enough on that. Sean, you said this person is a friend of yours. What happens if there's something going on with the ethics board? Are you going to recuse yourself from that? If it has to do with that person? I mean,
well, I'm not on the ethics board, so I don't.
No, but if they're a friend and it comes in front of this board, I don't see how, we can do that. Okay, it's just a question I got, and I got questions. Moving on from that, the egg hunt, the Easter egg hunt. What a day. I want to tell you, these two up here, Mark and Gina, is that your name? You guys did such a tremendous job of getting.
Yeah, let's give them a hand. Come on.
I appreciate everybody coming to that to help us all out, those of you that were in the country. Oh, wait a minute, that didn't necessarily look out. I want to also say, I hope this village understands that we need to do more of that. Okay, the people that were there were probably uneducated, were probably low income, most definitely, and they had a ball. Okay, I know the bunny personally. He almost got killed. There were so many kids underneath the parachute. They had a ball. Okay, and it's just one of those things. We need to do more of that. If we don't have Family Fun Day this year, come up with some money. It's going to be, it's horrible. We need to do more of that.
Ray, you're going to be on the Mayor's Advisory Board for special events?
You got it in a minute. My wife doesn't want me home, even though I am retiring. So I gotta have something to do. That, by the way, my replacement has been hired, so I will be bringing her to this meeting, hopefully the next meeting, so you can all meet her. I'm impressed. Lastly, there were 2 accidents in this village today. One was a motorcycle accident with a young man who was probably going to lose his leg, and I'm not supposed to discuss anything to do with HIPAA, but I'm not, because it's just general. I heard it through the grapevine. The man's probably gonna lose his leg. Had to be air flighted out of here. Okay, please, get it to all your friends and neighbors. Watch out for motorcycles. They have no defense. Whether it's his fault or it was the car's fault, I don't know. I have no idea. That's why they're still up there, right, Kevin? Correct. They're still trying to figure it out, okay? But this man, his life just changed. Secondly, we talk about sidewalks a lot. We had a gentleman on a scooter this morning that hit a chunk of sidewalk and dumped it. Okay, sidewalks are important where they are bad, okay? Not where there's a little crack or where there's a little, you know, a little discoloration or whatever, but where the sidewalks are bad, we really need to look at that and get those fixed. This was on True Cabin. So again, a resident of that area. And fortunately, he wasn't hurt because he sort of fell on the grass, but it could have been a lot worse.
Ray, gotta ask you to wrap it up for me, okay?
All right, I'm a safety guy, you know, I'm gonna talk about it all the time, even though I don't have a lot of education. Thank you.
Ray, I want to assure you on one thing, in terms of discussion of, there's some possible shifting at this point with the budget, there's some budget items that can occur because of things that have changed and whatnot. And one of the things I've listed to Julie along the way is somehow making sure that we can fortify our sidewalk funds. And I think everybody on this table here would agree that that might be something to look at. We can't do an overnight sensation, but for cases where we've identified problems and can do something to maybe, you know, accomplish a little bit here and there, it would be a good idea. And the other thing we've talked a lot about during the campaign was salt and sand provision. And that might be something as well to look at. So we've got a couple of weeks. I wanted to hear the public first, myself at least. I think you did as well. And then begin to say, okay, we've got some money to shift a little bit. What can we do with it that we haven't thought of so far?
Yeah, I want to second that. It's an excellent idea. We did increase the sidewalk fund with Christine for this budget, but given what a jump we just apparently had in our fund reserve, I think we could do more.
I don't even think we need necessarily go into the reserve, to be honest with you, with some of the shifting that can be done. We'll talk about it throughout the next 2 weeks amongst ourselves.
The reimbursement rate has not,
Yeah,
because
that'd be
originally,
something.
when it was originally put in place, it covered about half the cost of doing the sidewalk. It's now down to about 10%, just over time.
As a comment to that,
sure,
it really needs to start in village center.
Yeah.
And work its way out, not the opposite way.
Understood. Right now, I just want to make sure that we put funding into some spot to let it happen, and then we can parse out how we accomplish it from there and do it in somewhat reasonable time frame going forward.
Well, one of the issues, we were hoping to do it in a planned way, through some kind of joint kind of finance system that we're not allowed to do. Right now, the law is, it's up to individuals to do it, and then wherever they have the wherewithal to do it, that's where it's gonna happen. We're gonna talk about potentially having the building inspector, you know, target the sidewalks that are worst repair in terms of enforcement. But the way the system is now, it is, it's up to private property owners, it's not a planful kind of public project. So that would require some more conversation about how to implement that.
Well,
But I'd be interested in doing
I
that.
think having the funding in a spot at least gets us off in the right direction. Like I said, then figuring out exactly how to execute what happens next will accomplish what we need to start to do at the very least.
My biggest concern with that is safety.
Yep, 100%
It's
right.
Unsafe, that needs to be done.
And the police power of the village, when it comes to a safety issue, can begin to dictate after a little while, I think, and those types of things you just pointed out. Bob Bush had his hand up. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Bush, Union Church Ave. I'm talking on behalf of a resident, 62 Church Ave. She was on the corner of Neighboring Lane and Church. There's a big rock that has a cone on there. That cone, for the second time, has disappeared today. We were wondering if DPW possibly had taken it, because I have a ring doorbell that happens to cover that rock. If she does not, if there isn't, DPW didn't take that cone, is there a way DPW can either pulling there, and fastening it to the rock or do something?
To cut to a chase for your question, Jen and I will bring it up on Thursday when we sit down with Jeff. Just give me details by email or text or something that will give me the exact where and what on this one, because it's tough to picture just spoken, but I'm sure we can arrive at what happened here.
Well, the cone is used not only by DPW to back in there, but also by garbage men, by people that back anything in neighborhood Maine, because that rock gets hit if it doesn't have a cone.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I took a personal cone that I have and put it there, which disappeared between, she said 2 o'clock and 4:30 today. I haven't looked at my coverage yet, so I don't know what I could find.
Okay. We'll bring it to Jeff.
And one other thing I want to say is, can we please stop the political BS that's going on? Come on, guys. I thought that we'd be more transparent, more working together with each other, but this he said, she said, this Democrat, Republican, whatever party you are, it doesn't matter. We just please put the best people for the best job in place. Never mind what affiliation they have, never mind what who your buddies are, whatever it is. Whoever is the best person for the job, stick them in the position so they can do their job that they asked to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else up in the room that wants to speak? Chief
Kevin
Crowe.
Crowe, Town of Milton, I guess it'd behoove myself to say something after that speech I gave, I got a toilet. But I'm just very disappointed with the outcome and results tonight of those 2 members that were put on that board. You know, I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. It is what it is. You voted. As I said, I'm very disappointed in this board for those actions. I'm thankful I got 1 year left. I'm afraid if you guys pull somebody off the street, put them against fire chief against me, I'd probably kick to the curb. But thanks.
Anybody else in the room? I see 2 hands. I don't know how new they are at this point on Zoom.
I'll give Dick Duffy another opportunity to speak.
Well, it could be Dick or it could be Donna,
It
so
could be, yeah.
identify and address, please.
Hello, my name is Donna Duffy. And we're under some tornado warnings here in Arkansas, so, but I just wanted to say.
Be safe out there.
I just want to say thank you to you, Frank and Bernadette, and all the other people in the audience or wherever that have supported me to be on this ethics commission. It really meant a lot. And we all know that these 3 trustees had it in for us right from the beginning. And there was going to be nothing that was said about us that was going to change their minds, because the bottom line is it's personal and it's political. They wanted their people in, even though they don't know who the people are.
Donna, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Are you willing to be on the Mayor's Advisory Board on ethics code revisions? Because I do value your input. You have operated under it, and your background in this community is special, and I would like you to still be a part of our community, at least in that act.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll put you back on mute. You gotta be safe out there, please. And who was it?
Next would be Linda. I'm sorry, Lisa.
Lisa Spidell?
Yeah.
You keep killing Lisa on the Zoom there, Jen.
I'm trying.
Okay, Lisa, you are up. Go ahead. Again, name and address, please.
Lisa Spidell, 106 Prospect Street, Village of Ballston Spa, Town of Milton. I really don't have much to say except for the fact that I don't understand. There's so many things going on in our world, I guess you could say, but with COVID, you know, one state did things one way, another state did things another way, and vaccinate or not vaccinate, go here, don't go there. You know, you're not allowed, we've taken 50 million steps back. And I've always said that if you can make a difference in your local community, that's a start towards big change. I don't know what the hell just happened. But I think it's a huge disrespect to our local community. We're not making a difference. We're back in 5th grade school, wherever, where let's put our friends, let's pick our friends for the board. Let's put who we like. And that's not, it's kind of like the kid in the gym. I was last one picked. I just sat there and waited. I don't care if you're educated. I don't care what damn color you are. I don't care what sex you are. I don't care how you identify. But if you're an ethical person and you've been in that position and there was never any question, and the only problem that you could come up with was some, little mistake that was made, maybe it wasn't a little mistake, but the fact of the matter is, you're putting people in that couldn't even be at this meeting to say who they are, what their names are, identify who they are. Like, I don't even know what these people look like. And I guess I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed in the people that are supposed to represent me and all the other people that live and pay taxes in this village. That to me is the biggest, you that voted for someone that couldn't even represent themselves to the people that they're supposed to be there for, aren't even there. And do you think that's ethical? It's not. I'm really disappointed. Change has to start local and with the people that and that didn't happen. That's all the energy I have. Thanks.
Have a hand up. Do we any more hands on Zoom before I do that? Joanne, I think that is, yep.
Yep. Joanne Champagne, McLean Street.
Good and loud from Joanne, one more time too. That.
Joanne Champagne, McLean Street. I just blown away right now. I'm saddened. I'm sickened. Actually. Could you folks give me a reason? All of a sudden, after all the years of service these two have given, what are your real reasons to say you need to have a change right now? Ben, Liz, John.
They're not required to respond right now, as you know, but it's up to them to do it. If they want to, I'm not going to stop them. So, if you guys want to?
I'm sure it's not going to change your mind, but I think we residents who have the utmost respect for these two people, along with numerous volunteers that we have known all our lives in this village, I think we deserve to know why someone can be just kicked aside in a matter of minutes. It makes me sick. I'm shaking. It makes me so ill. You've done some horrible things that many of us have overlooked, but we accept things the way they should be. But I don't understand this at all. And when someone looks at me like that, I want to know your reason, especially. I don't. You just take these two people who are wonderful people going, and what is that going to do for the outlook of others who have always given back to this village? What's going to happen when people start taking a step back because this is the way they're going to be treated? I seriously would like an answer for that. We love this community. We work together. We'll do anything for each other. We don't care if it's pain, offensive, or we can have a 4-year degree, but we can still paint fences. It doesn't make us any different than the other person. Which Dan, for me to ask another question, if you cared about this community as much as we do, and I know I've asked you this like a couple of years ago, where are you during like these beautiful festivities they did for the children? I have yet to see you there, walking around, talking with people, seeing the faces on these children. With all the committees that I've been on throughout the years that had to do with the children in this village, there's nothing more important than giving back to these kids. That's what part of the community is. I'm very upset and I highly disrespect you for what you've done. These two people.
Wow.
Ron Martin.
Donna Martin, 20 Chesterwood Court. You mentioned earlier, or it could have been at the last meeting, that people want to serve, had offered and were willing to serve. So I don't want Anna's question to get lost. I do want to know the answer. Did you reach out to these people or did they come to you? That's all I have, and I want those answers.
Any other hands? Okay. At this point is board, what do we, so,
Comments, questions,
thank
and
you.
concerns.
What she said. I'm trying to keep a sense of humor here, but it's tough. I'm not gonna lie at this table. I will defer to my four friends as trustees first. I do have a couple things I do want to say, even though I kind of despise the section. I think I have to say a few things, but you first, go ahead.
In regards to some of the comments made, I made my comments during the voting process. Made it clear what my position was on this. Again, I would like to have somebody that I know with more certainty will be in the village when they're called upon, when they need to be called upon. I also, speaking with Frank before he was even there, I said, we need to start giving other people opportunities who are interested a chance to participate in village administration. And those are my reasons. So.
I'd just like to address Ray as far as education. I was not talking about somebody who has a college degree versus doesn't. I was talking about specific education on ethics and state law on ethics and village law on ethics. And for people making on an ethics committee, making those decisions, they should have some training, just like our planning board members have training and our zoning board members have training. They make critical decisions on behalf of the village, and they should, have some education that will help guide them. That's what I was talking about, is education.
I'm not gonna revisit the whole conversation. I do want to bring up, I thought there was an interesting article in Daily Gazette on Sunday, that Saratoga Springs is gonna allow some public control of the budget process, like $100,000 or so will be, people will ideally be solicited for how to use that money. And of course, it's in the context of having money, if we have enough. But I thought it might, and there's a whole process for vetting and, and making the decision. It's not something you just jump into. But I guess they do it in Rochester and in New York City. And now Saratoga is going to try it. And I guess they do it in Greensboro, North Carolina. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting idea to have some affordable chunk of money that we then say, what do you think we should do? And people come up with project ideas. So just thought I'd put that out there.
Did you contact them to apply, or did they contact you to apply for the ethics board? I think 3 different people asked this question, and this is kind of what we're supposed to be doing at this point in the meeting, is answering a little bit of the questioning going on. And I think it's a fair question at this point. I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know the answer. So if you'd like to answer, I think this would be a good time for it.
Well, with Carrie, I just happened to be talking to her, and the topic came up, and she was interested, and that's how it happened. And I want to emphasize that historically, board members are not compelled to answer any and all audience questions. At the time,
Frank, just end the meeting, please.
it's
Put me out of my chain.
so.
Folks, come on.
And,
made it this far.
and we will probably change the format if it becomes unmanageable.
Ben, there's nothing about this that was unmanageable.
Oh,
It's 10
let's see,
o'clock
it's
at
10:08.
night.
It was a simple question.
Anyway.
They were questions.
And I answered it.
Did you ask her?
I answered it.
No, you didn't. The
Wonderful.
topic came up. Did you bring the topic up?
Let's,
We have ethics.
Yeah, I brought the topic up.
Yeah, Liz,
folks, stop.
you're up, Liz. This is your public. We are the taxpaying residents of Ballston, Spa, New York, and we ask you a question. You represent us. I pay taxes on 3 properties in this village, and I asked a damn question. Donna asked a question. Carol asked a question. Did you reach out to these people and ask them to apply, or did they come to you and say, I want to serve? It's an easy question to answer.
I'm gonna stop us there. Bernadette,
Just briefly, I want to thank Donna and Lloyd for their service. I think our village owes them a thanks and gratitude for not only their efforts on ethics, but just everything they do. And I'm so glad to hear that Donna wants to continue to serve advising the mayor. Additionally, I want to just commend the 2 of you for an awesome Easter event that I had to miss because I was in Canada visiting family. But I heard it was wonderful. The photos are wonderful, and it brought up to our community. So I hope to see more of those kind of events. And I just want to thank our first responders. I know with my family, when someone gets in a life-threatening accident, how important it is. So I'm praying for that individual, that young man who was in the accident. And I just know that our first responders save lives because I've seen it. And just grateful for that.
like to say a few things real quick here, and I understand it's 3 hours and 10 minutes old, folks, but you know what? First off, the fact that we have members of our community that are still sitting here without running out that door at 3 hours and 10 minutes speaks volumes of our community. To act like we are off our rails because we took advantage of public comment, including a public hearing, which nobody actually spoke at, believe it or not, that we're somehow crazy or need to be restrained or restricted as residents is discouraging and slap in the face to your residents. I would really, really ask us to get off our high horse and understand who put us here. I understand what the law is about public comment. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that we can't do better. We keep using this do better phrase. We have to actually do better. At the beginning of this meeting, about 2.5 hours ago, I read you, I have A through K plus 1 for the fish fry I almost forgot today. This is almost all good news for our community. Seriously. We've got our water pumps. We've got Milton doing us a favor in Colonial Hills. We've got a fish fry, Union Fire Company, a possible dish network contract that we can negotiate, hopefully more money. Possible swap money, Easter egg hunt, PDD, coffee with the mayor. I don't know if that's good news.
Are you buying?
Julia's on it.
Julia's definitely on it. And
I don't know if that's.
and mayor advisory boards get some community involvement when we can't agree on boards, period here, but we still want to get some involvement. That all got lost here tonight because we got political. We. To a certain degree, I have to accept that, whether I want to or not, because I'm going to be blamed for it anyway, but it's part of politics. But we just got really political after a bunch of good news, and we couldn't compromise in a way that was comfortable or realistic, and it hurt people that care about our village to the point that we're parsing out whether one contribution is better than another in this village. Damn it all, every contribution in this village matters. And to sit there and sort of cover up the idea that you don't want to vote for somebody because they're not your friend, or they didn't vote for you, or they weren't on your campaign or whatever, just be honest with your folks here and move on instead of trying to dance around it for an hour. That's not fair to anybody in this room, but we all stood by, listened, and try to understand. But the number one thing that got said in our public comment, number 3 technically tonight, was, I don't understand. If our residents after 3 hours don't understand what just happened here, then we are doing a pretty damn awful job as a village government. Let's do better. Thank you for all your attention. May I have a motion to adjourn and that the vouchers number 22-01338 to 22-01940 be audited and the meeting be adjourned. Or something to that effect.
Make a motion.
Trustee Baskin,
I'll second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor
Aye.
at 10:14.
I